Okay, everybody, welcome. We haven't made videos in a while because mostly it's just Alex's fault. Don't ask me why. Just is. So,
of course.
Yeah. So here we are. We're making a new one. We came up with the name, and by we I mean me, and by me I mean Cujo. Came up with the name Jiggle Peak for this. So what it is it's kind of a smaller, condensed Peaker's Advantage-ish type thing, where instead of sort of a host general topics, we go around. Each person asks each other person on here 2 questions, and the other person answers them. The only rule is nothing about personal life or family members or anything like that, just because that would be weird. So,
can I just ask one very small question quickly? Just
no, it only
who the fuck actually is the person who's in the box that isn't Semphis, Mauisnake, or you?
I'm the producer.
No one's introduced me who it is.
So no, do we need to?
Later, I don't
do
know.
we need to?
Oh, right, he's not on the actual show, right? I can only see the box here. So
this is a private show for you.
So. Right, okay. That makes sense.
This actually isn't even going out to the public. This is just for us. We're just hanging out with you.
This is just a Discord call.
Yeah,
just a casual.
This is just a Discord call. But yeah, of course, to all you people out there, Thorin has joined us on here for our questioning because I feel like he's going to have better questions than the rest of us are going to be able to come up with. So, yeah. Anyways, Thorin, I almost called you. Well, actually, I did call you Doran. So I was going to say Duncan Thorin. Very confusing. My brain gets mixed up very easily. But thank you for joining us. Appreciate it as always for giving us your time. All right. So just for fun, Alex, you're going to go first. Just because I like your hair.
So I'm gonna ask people.
Yes, you got to ask the question.
It's a bad sign already. If you
all right.
I'm gonna ask people. You know what?
Who am I? No. Who am I asking?
You have to pick.
You want.
It's up to you.
Whoever
looks the cutest.
You're running the show right now.
Okay. Well, let's get Corey involved. So, Semphis, what are you doing to maintain your gains during the pandemic? Because most gyms are closed.
I'm just doing these band workouts, man. Like, honestly, the first couple times I did it, I was actually mad. Like, I actually was like I punched the wall, I think, at one point. Like, I was pissed because I was just like, sucks. But then after I just kept doing it for like a week or two, then it started getting more and more natural because like the bands really, you can make them hard. They're just hard to get in position. Like, they want to move, or for example, the hard band that actually has enough resistance. Like, if you're doing push-ups with it, it wants to like snap off and like slap me in the back of the head. Like, it doesn't want to stay like where I want it. So like once I got used to that, it was fine. So I've been doing that, and I've raised my calories to be like maintenance kind of like around there. So I'm just like, I don't really care about dieting. I feel like you're going to lose more muscle if you diet without proper training than you are just eating more normally. So I don't think I've lost any muscle, to be honest. I'm sure I've lost strength though.
You kind of look smaller.
Yeah,
you look frail.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things. I think you can't look too much of it mentally. Like, I did order a gym though, so I got a squat rack and a barbell, a bench, and 10 plates coming. So
there you go. How do you like move that around? Like, if you hypothetically move in the future, like you just like take it all apart. Yeah, honestly, none of it's really that hard to move except the squat rack, I guess, would be kind of. You just need someone with a truck. The plates are honestly more expensive than everything else added up together. Yeah, no,
because they're like dude. I was looking at it, I was like, oh fuck, like wish I was weak. wish I squatted like 100 pounds, and that'd be fine.
Yeah, I was about to say your girlfriend probably doesn't even weigh enough for you to even like use her as any sort of weight.
No,
what are you saying? Why are you calling his girlfriend small? What are you doing?
Also,
for real. Your girlfriend's doing it, Davey. What are you doing?
Yeah, no personal things, Davey.
My girlfriend's 5'10", dude. She's fucking tall.
Oh, that is pretty
cool. She'll fuck you up, Davey.
I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it.
All right. Question for Thorin. I'll just move around, I guess, in a circle, and I'll come back.
Yeah, no, it's you're in charge right now. You do your thing.
Yeah. All right. So, Thorin, you've never been one to shy away from hot takes and being just really critical of players. How do you think that's helped and hurt your career?
I think I actually sort of have the hack that I don't think it ever hurt my career, because like, it's funny. I guess I can think of one area it probably did hurt my career, which is since I'm simultaneously being like an analyst and a journalist, it's inarguably meant that certain people won't do interviews with me. Like, put it this way, I'll go ahead and give you one that everyone should have guessed by now. There's a reason why there'll never be a Reflections with Forrest. I mean, I have basically just like argued against him being the GOAT to the void of nobody who cares for about like 10 years. So
did he say he doesn't want to do it, or he just?
I'm just going to go ahead and guess that there would be no reason that he would want to do it.
I just feel like he's a pretty chill guy. Like, I don't feel like he would really, like.
It's just that he's someone who wouldn't do interviews very often anyway.
I was about to say, he doesn't really do interviews to begin with.
So it's more like if he does it, it's going to be because he's in the mood for it or he just likes the person. So in this case, that's just a pretty obvious example where I think people have guessed about how conspicuous the absence of an interview like that is when, let's face it, like I could get most of the other legends that have played the game. So it maybe hurts a little bit in that regard. But that's not the end of the world. I think that's fine. Because for me, part of being critical is just basically giving your own real ideas that you think about the game. And so I think the ability to express those opinions elsewhere way outweighs doing the occasional interview or having someone be nice about you who doesn't really know you as a person. Because I've always felt like what people probably don't know is, I mean, Semphis probably remembers this. Back in the day in 1.6, I never used to have any opinion piece shit out there. I don't have any like columns or my opinion. I was trying to just play it fairly straight laced. I was just writing articles or like super long, boring historical articles. So as much as that means people don't dislike you from the player base, it's not like you gain anything from it either. Like this, you're still just a nobody to them. So I don't really think it held me back much. I think the benefit is, like I say, you get to express yourself, get to get your ideas out there. I've even found out after enough time, sometimes you even do have actual more influence than you realize. If you put an idea out there, for example, about maybe this player could be changed for another player, sometimes you see people, they think about it. It actually does enter their brain in a way it might not have otherwise. So I think it's all overall positive, net gain.
Cool. All right, moving on to DAVEY. So you kind of had, I remember hearing on Richard's, I guess like no Flashpoint Club or something. I guess you would. How about how the CS players, like the Counter-Strike Players Association, did contact you guys at the lower level? I guess kind of playing off of that, I was thinking about how semi-pros probably interact with the Players Association nowadays, or if at all. Do you think there's a way that the Players Association or anyone can hold like I just think of North American orgs that just don't pay players. How do you hold these orgs responsible that are keep trying to jump into the space and then they just don't do shit? Like they don't pay anybody.
I don't think there is any way to hold them responsible if they just jump in, don't pay people, and then fuck off, right? I don't think there's any way to hold them responsible. Like I guess you could offer some, like you could have like a legal team within the Players Association that could be responsible for dealing with stuff like that, but where would they get the funding to fund that? Are all the tier 1 players making all their big money going to put percentages of their salaries up every month to pay for a legal team?
You have to educate the lower players, I think, to not sign stupid contracts.
Yeah, I think the best way, like you're not going to be able to hold those orgs responsible, but I think the way to prevent that from happening would be to at least give teams legal advice before signing the contract, or maybe even just player-to-player advice, like, hey, what do you think about this? You think this is a good contract, a bad contract? The problem is, even when players in the past have come to me and said, hey, this org is offering me this contract, this, what should I do? And I'd be like, I wouldn't sign that. That's shady as fuck. You know, you don't know if they're going to pay you. You don't know if they're not, blah, blah, blah. But they still sign it anyways, because even just the hope that it will materialize, or maybe it's their first like contract with where they're promising money or this and this, the hope gets them excited. So they do it against advice from other people. So it's mostly, there has to be some, on that one, there has to be a level of personal responsibility to not enter into bad contracts, because there's just no way to hold those orgs responsible besides, I guess, remembering who was in charge of them at the time and making sure if they ever come back in, you remind everybody what they've done previously. That would be really the only thing that they could do.
Okay. Back to Semphis. This is kind of a 3-part, but it's the 2 of the parts are pretty brief, so just bear with me. Okay, so one is how would you describe, or what teams did you IGL for?
I didn't ever do any calling on like the first iteration of like Complexity or Quantic or anything with Dazed. That was more like Sean and Dazed would kind of like switch off and on, and then in Complexity was pretty much just Sean for the most part. And then when it got to Cloud9, me and him switched off a few times. It's hard for me to remember exactly like how many times we did it. There was a time where we just did it, I think, in scrims for a little bit, and then just so he could have like a break, I think, like not actually like I'm calling, but maybe kind of like the Zonic Glaive thing where it's just someone else called so he could like practice more of like his own skill and stuff.
Didn't you do it in like late 2014, the one where you had like the Shroud and before Hiko left? Wasn't that when you did it for a few tournaments?
On Cloud9, I think I did 3 tournaments in a row. The major and then ESWC and maybe like the Face It or something. Yeah, I think those 3. And like a lot of people don't understand though is like at the start, like when I called back then, it wasn't like I was like, yo guys, I'm the sickest caller ever, let me call. It was like Sean was kind of burnt out a little bit, it seemed like, and he wasn't feeling like his strategies were being like run the way he wanted, like for multiple players on the team. Like it wasn't just like one person, it didn't seem like, or to me it didn't. So he wanted, like, he was just kind of like, and I was like, okay, I can call some like puggy stuff and catch people off guard. So like my whole play style of like back then was literally just to catch people off guard. It was like I wasn't expecting to be calling long term, so it was like, let's go into these tournaments and just fuck shit up, because everyone knows how annoying it is to play versus a team that doesn't have any fear. Like it works, it does work, it's just not gonna work forever. So I think I got like a little bit of shit when we did worse from my calling, but I was just like, well, I wasn't really trying to be the methodical caller. Later on, when I was on TSM, well, I guess I should say that when I was on the Nylum lineup, Valens was calling, right? And he's like really, really smart. Like everyone knows Valens. He's like one of the smartest people I know, probably the smartest person I know. And, he'll work for like Tesla and Google, and like the guy's a genius basically. So he was calling, he's really smart. But one of the things that he was having trouble with once we moved to Complexity is the goal was, when we talked to Complexity, was we have 6 months to prove ourselves, right? So they didn't let us build anything though. Like after 2 months, when the results weren't great, like keep in mind, it wasn't like we were losing every single game. It was just we weren't winning every game. Like we're trading games. We're even trading some games versus like at the time like LG and stuff. It wasn't like we were bad. We were just not the best. We were medium. We were middle of the pack. And Valens was getting a ton of shit from like Jason Lake, from Warden, saying that we need to replace this guy for someone more skilled. And me and Tim didn't want to remove him because it seemed like kind of bullshit to say a lineup has 6 months and then to not give it 6 months. Like that, I'm kind of one of those people that's like, even if there is a weak link, like you need to have your defaults, your rotations, your setups, and everything on point, so everything is being done properly by everyone. And then if you're losing, you replace the weakest link. Like that's always been my logic, because if you just replace someone without actually having the basics even down, is it necessarily really that person's fault? Because it could be the fact that there's holes everywhere, like not everything is being run. People are missing smoke, people are missing flashes. On top of that, you're the caller, like I think it's unfair to cut people that quickly. That's just a personal opinion. I know some people are just like, oh, get someone with better skill, whatever. That's fine. But at the end of the day, we wanted the 6 months and we didn't get the 6 months. So we thought the best way to do it was be like, I call, and then Soam can, like Valens can focus on fragging, so that he doesn't get like scapegoated so hard for his stats. So then I started calling like that, and then inevitably they just kind of forced us to remove him. But then me and Tim went to TSM, and then
I heard you were like calling in that team, even though you had FNS, you sort of cocked him into just being a player or something, right?
We never got him. We never got him to actually be the caller. I was always the caller. He called a little bit, but then he got mad and then stopped calling. He got mad because like we had a lot of inexperienced players on the team, right? Like even Automatic back then wasn't the most experienced. Like there's a couple things I would have done differently if I could go back in time. Like obviously I think a lot of people could probably say that about a lot of lineups. It wasn't any.
No, but what's sick is if people forget, you had Automatic, fucking Sick, and Twists, and remember Sick was supposed to be eventually really good. Like that's a lineup that if you look back now,
back then
way more.
Back then, Sick was better than Twist, like in my opinion. Like
I always tell people that. That's why the guy failed in his career, because he should have been on the same trajectory.
He was very skilled. His problem was he didn't have much reservation when it came to like playing smarter. Like when he got killed, bloodlust. You know what I mean? Like it's just like more. Russ was way more conservative, way more passive. Like he'll get the kill and fall back. He doesn't always go for more kills. So I think that's why he's better now. He's super skilled, plus he's got good reservation, right? So he doesn't give up easy kills. But the thing is, when I was back on that team, like Automatic was the best of the three, right? Like at that time, like Automatic was better than those three. I don't care what anyone says. He's still really good, but like I kind of fucked up in the sense that like I gave Automatic all the harder roles because I figured the smarter person that I trusted more would do them better. You know what I mean? So like instead of giving him some of the more starish roles, I was like, can you just please play this? I don't trust them to play. It wasn't that I thought Automatic was worse. I gave him these spots because I thought he would do a better job for the team. And it kind of caused a rift, you know, like in the whole team, because it felt like people were catering towards Twist or Sick or whatever, and they felt like, oh, they don't deserve it because, you know, they don't even calm half the time. You got to remember, this is their first pro team ever. They're not established like they are now. You know, there was no comms, there's bad peaks. I'm not saying I was like a perfect player either, you know, but like these are like new players to the
they
level.
were just missing a lot of the basics that you would expect like a seasoned pro to just have naturally.
Yeah, so we were like kind of like rough around the edges as a team. So, and then FNS obviously is like not the strongest for Eric, so he's playing like the super support. But you know, like if I go back in time, I probably would have given him more of what he wanted, you know, and then just like kind of made FNS do like less of the stuff. And I don't know, there's always people like fucking messaging me wanting to cut FNS and fucking my management and stuff. Like I always on these teams where people just want to cut people all the time. I'm never really one of those people that like want to cut people super fast. And like maybe that's like a bad decision in my career to just not like go with the flow sometimes, because like I think I stick up for people too much. Like I'm never the guy that'd be like, all right, yeah, fuck it, let's cut them and get someone. But like I don't know, like it probably would have worked out for me better if I did, you know, like looking back. Yeah. But that's just not the type of person I've been, you know, like I don't like cutting people. Like you could even ask Davey, like whenever we cut people from Splyce, I wasn't really the one forefronting it ever, except for Exotic, who.
And even with Exotic, it took you a while to convince you that like, Corey, this like it took him literally dodging a land for Corey to be like, all right, fine, we can cut him.
Well, I wasn't protecting the whole time, but like, you know, like at the start, for one, I never even wanted Exotic.
That's
like
true.
From the start. I wanted Ricky and some of these other players that were around. Kusta was available as well, but our org didn't really want to pay money. That's a whole nother topic. But like, I don't know. I feel like when you get a player, you got to give the person a chance. Like the person has to have a chance. Like you, especially when you pick up a younger player, you can't get someone that's, you know, 15, 16 that has really good talent and then be like, oh, you're not as well-rounded as a player as we thought. Like you have to go into that knowing that they're not well-rounded, and the org and everyone needs to know that it's going to be a time commitment to get them up to that level, which is kind of why I think a lot of teams are better off doing kind of like the Nip Dignitas approach, where you have like 3 or 4 vets and then you get a newer player. You know, like I think that works better. I don't think you should get 3 new players and have 2 experienced players. I think that's a bad idea personally. So, you know, there's definitely things that we could have done differently. But yeah, I called in the whole TSM lineup. I think maybe one LAN or one period of time where FNS called, but it was mostly me. And then Splyce, again, I went to Splyce and I wasn't really supposed to call. I went to Splyce being like, I don't want to op, I don't want to call, I just want to rifle, do what I did back when I was like, felt like I was at my best, you know? And then I was playing pretty good, and then fucking Ronnie wanted to cut Crucial, and I didn't want to cut him. I was like, I don't want to op. I was like, can you just like bear with him? But then he got cut, and then I started fucking opping, and then I started calling, and then I was just back at square one again, where I'm fucking offing and calling.
Okay, so that was part 1 of the question. What's part 2?
That was like part 1 and 2, because he ended up explaining more than I asked for. But the third part of it was just, do you see any teams today, and you just think to yourself, oh, that's a similar style to IGLing? Like, what team in the top 20, I guess, would you say right now calls most similar to the way you call?
He's going to go Stanislaw. You ready?
You know, I wasn't actually thinking Stanislaw, but I actually do not the way that Stanislaw calls. Like, I just, you know, when it comes to Stanislaw and that type of calling, I do think it works. I just don't think it's the most consistent style for like a long period of time. I think that's like when I started getting like once I started being a caller for longer, I honestly want to do more defaults, more slower plays. So like don't misconstrue what I'm about to say as saying I can call equally as good as this, but I like to play more like Astralis in slow, like, and having like a little mini plan for everything rather than like a set strat. But a lot of people don't realize how hard it is to do that. Like, you have to have 5 players that understand the value of their life. Because, like, just an easy example is Train, like Zipnix at Ivy, like, he doesn't die. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't die. He never dies. If he does die, they had to commit to kill him, so they're going to do other shit across the map, you know. And Train's not their best map, so it's whatever. But my main point is, like, when you play with some lesser experienced players, even though they might get a kill and die, they don't realize that, like, they kind of like lost half the map. You know, like, there's a lot more things. So I think in a sense, it's almost easier to call with skill, like Stanislaw does. Like, if I have a really skilled lineup, like, just I have way more skill than everyone, probably I would call more puggy, to be honest. Like, I'd let the players, like, dude, if I have Simple on my team, I'm gonna play slow as fuck. I'm gonna play so slow. Like, I'm not gonna have like a super set strat. I'm just gonna be like, let's make sure that he doesn't die. Like, make sure he's getting as much opportunities as he can with a op, to just, because in my opinion, like, the slower you call on T side with op, the more potential your opper has to have an impact. When you call these rushes and shit, like, I don't agree. Like, Circus so good. Like, sometimes they do these rushes and the opper can't do anything. It's like the riflers either go get kills and they win the round for you and they get covered by the op, or they're running through smokes and dying, and then the opper's just sitting there like, oh shit, like, what do? Either I save, or like I'm running through a smoke and hoping I quick scope 2 people. So it's like it's almost a double-edged sword when you play puggy when you have a really good opper. So I don't know. Yeah, I think in the best case, I get all the players I want. I would call slow like Astralis, like maybe even like Navi, just really slow, really like, just, you know, anti-strat these people, just make sure that their good players aren't like able to use their skill, you know. I don't know. That would be me.
Okay. Bouncing off that to Thorin. Okay, so I watched your video a while back about MVPs and how you kind of grade them for a tournament. What criteria, do you think in any case, let's say the ratings for a team were like a 1.09, like this team, let's imagine this hypothetical team wins a tournament. One player has a 1.09, the other has a 1.08, the IGL has a 1.04, and then 2 players are beneath him. But their tactics look really good, and their kills and everything were very evenly distributed. Do you think if you saw the tactics basically set everything up, that you would give the MVP to the IGL in the circumstance? Or basically, what's a circumstance in which you would give an MVP to an IGL? Because I feel like you usually would give it to the better player, the player that had the most kills.
Basically, just for anyone who doesn't know the video you're referring to, I basically made a video where, on the topic of who you name the MVP, I pointed out that my criteria personally is it should basically be the best player in the tournament, and then the only reason that you disqualify him is, say he went out in the round of 8. Okay, maybe I get it. So whoever made the final probably has more sample size. Therefore, if they have comparable stats, they win. But the point is, like, it should usually be the best player if they also performed at a high level. Stats help with that. The eye test helps with that. But the point, as a result, is one of the arguments that I made in this video is, I mean, Astralis is the best example. Because Astralis won like every fucking tournament, it's like people were going out of their way to find a reason as to why Glaive should be the MVP this time, or Zipnik should be. It's like they had fatigue from like, well, it can't be Device again. He won the last 8. It's like, well, was he the best player? If he was the best player, I don't care if that means he wins 15 in a row. Like, obviously, Simple, if he plays in Navi, probably should win the MVP every time. It's going to be rare that he wouldn't, because, like, think about the tough spot. I even made this point that, like, Electronics in. It's like when Fur and Cold Zero were at their prime. What's the odds Fur can win the MVP? Because odds are Cold Zero probably has to be really, really good. And Cold Zero's style is kind of more conducive to winning the MVP. So anyway, to bring that all back, the rare cases where I would give like an IGL, because again, people might get lost by the numbers you give there. The reason you purposely said like 1.09 is like the best fragger, you're implying the team didn't have like a monster fragger. Right, it definitely wasn't like, you know, weird. It wasn't like 1.2 versus everyone 1.5. So I've actually done it before in the past. When it was the tournament where Titan had Kaylee and Kenny S, and they beat actually Fnatic, who was like the prime Fnatic with the Olaf Meister in them, but they hadn't become the best yet. And they beat LDLC, who just made their team with Shocks and NBK and Kiyashima and those guys. I actually gave it to Existence for that tournament. And the reason why was, even though Kenny S was going super fucking ham, he'd done that in past tournaments before. Like his level was very similar. But if you ever watched the games that we're talking about here, they 2-0 these two teams, who, by the way, went on to be the two best teams of the following next year of play. And the way that they beat them was all with their T side. Like they just dismantled these teams on the T side, and those teams couldn't do jack shit against them. So it's like in that scenario, even though Kenny S might be the one getting the kills, and at the end of the scoreboard, he's at the top, it's like, it's not like he in isolation did that. Like, I do think the tactics actually set him up. So it's going to be very, very rare, because it'd have to be something like that where every factor that I think of somehow comes back to the tactician and how he won his matchup even harder. So I do think you can do it. I don't think it's unreasonable to say he's the MVP in that sense, but I think it should be very niche. Like, I don't think, for example, as I pointed out in that video, if we're going to use numbers, just because often people use that for stats to make the MVP, let's say Device had a 1.17 rating and Glaive had a 1.10 rating. Now for Glaive, that's fucking amazing. Like, holy shit, look at this level. Device should still win the MVP, because here's the problem, right? Would they still win the MVP if Device had played like shit and Glaive had the 1.1? Of course they wouldn't. Like, it wouldn't even be on the table. So in that scenario, it was another facet to that video. I feel like the other unfair angle for MVPs is you let someone carry you all the way to the final, and then if a guy does well in the final, he's the MVP. It's like, well, we wouldn't even be in the final without the other guy. And so usually that's the best player, hence why he's the best player.
Okay. Do you think it would be more likely to give an MVP to a caller if their T sides were just like absolutely insane? Or would you, because like you got two sides to that, either their fraggers are just going off on T side in a tournament, right? Like Nico's one tapping everyone, like Rain's one tapping. Okay, fair enough. It's probably not the caller. Yeah. But if you see like over, one tournament, even like Train, Nuke, all these maps are just getting 13 twos, would you be like, oh shit, that's some insane calling? Like, would you be more likely to do it then?
Put it this way, like, this is just on the top of my head. When I think of the last major Astralis had, if you wanted to go from the tactical angle and give Glaive the MVP then, I wouldn't necessarily be hating, because actually I didn't think all the 5 Astralis players played super good at that tournament. Some of them actually didn't even come online until specific playoff matches that people probably remember. So if you wanted to give him one then, yeah, fair enough. They 2-0'd every opponent. They won the opponent's map pick every time. And from what I remember, the T-sides were fucking fantastic. So yeah, I think as long as, again, a lot of this is going to be off the eye test, obviously, just even tactically. Like, how did it look like it worked out? Did it look like they made a sick read? So
yeah,
you're guessing, but I feel like you can make
hard.
a pretty good guesstimate on tactics sometimes like that.
Yeah, you can. When you're watching T-sides, a lot of the times it's hard to necessarily tell when somebody's made a read, because you don't know who's making the call, because unless it's literally the in-game leader, you can see him making the read in the game, like he's the one making the move. A lot of the times you'll see somebody get like a perfect timing and make a really good flank or have some sort of read going on, but you don't know if it's the person that's in that position making that read or if it's somebody else telling him to do it. So it's kind of hard to tell exactly who had that impact a lot of the time.
Put it this way, it's one of the reasons why I used to think MSL was a good IGL, but what made me convinced he's a really good IGL is when he had those bad North lineups where it's like, dude, he could get them a million bomb plants. He could get them into all the sites. He could literally call like 5 good maps. And the point was they weren't winning half these games because the players after they got the bomb plant just fucked up the round or whiffed on someone's head when the guy was coming out. But in that scenario, it's like, it doesn't matter how many T rounds you won. The first part that you were controlling looked amazing.
Yeah. Okay. I think one example I noticed at Flashpoint, for example, is that MOTM CT sides averages like 60 ADR, but on T sides, this dude would pop off with like 115 ADR. So do I think as a player, MOTM is like averaging a 90 ADR thing? I think it's mostly because of the strats that they put together for him, for example. And then he would end up a match or a map with like the highest rating above Floppy or something like that. When by the eye test, you're like, the only reason they won so many of these rounds was Floppy. So I would actually, in a case like that, I would probably, even though MOTM would end with a higher rating in some of these maps, I would still have to say Floppy was like the MVP. But even beneath that, I would probably put JT as setting up MOTM to do well in some of those rounds. But regardless, my question for Davey, the final question I have, is also related to IGLs. Which IGL have you faced, do you think, just outcalled the fuck out of you? Just completely, it felt like you were getting tactically abused every time you played.
Avoid the obvious jokes here. Like, narrow it down a bit more.
Yeah. All of them. Fallen, absolutely Fallen. And I wasn't necessarily in-game leading against them back in the day, but back on the old Splyce lineups, like Arya was the in-game leader, but even he would tell you I was doing a lot of the secondary calling, because back then that was in like the lurk meta. back then, so I was the lurker, and a lot of the times I'd be listening for rotations or putting pressure, and I could call, no, actually come back here. They're playing this way different or whatever. And playing against that old LG team, like way back in the day when they had won their 2 majors, and they felt unplayable. I don't know if it was just Fallen.
Wild shit though.
Yeah.
People don't get even in scrims and stuff, dude. If you're like looking at ladder on train, like holding it for like a minute and a half, you turn furs up the ladder, kill 2 of you in the back. You're like, what the fuck, man? Like, what it felt like that everywhere on the map. Like you're always getting flanked. You're always like, you could never win.
It never. There was times when it felt like, oh, they're just dominating us. Like, oh, they're just fucking owning us. Like the Liquid Simple lineup. You'd play against them in scrims. It'd just be like, Simple was. I remember the first week he was here, and he just filled in Hiko's roles, I think. So he was like the B lurker on Cash on their T side, and he would just like walk into B and just kill us. Like it was just like walking to B, kill 2 of us, throw what like so that like that time you just felt like, all right, he's just way better. But playing against that
more
old
like individual, right?
Yeah, exactly. It felt more individual. It felt like, okay, that guy's just owning us, or yeah, they just one tapped us or whatever. But playing against that old LG team, it felt like you were just outclassed. Like across the map, it felt like they always knew what you were going to do before you knew you were going to do it.
Also, think how bullshit this is. Imagine trying to play against a team where the guy who's pushing up and super aggro AWPing you is the motherfucking IGL. And as a result, if you kill him, he still sees where all your setup is and calls it to his team. And if he kills you and pulls back, now you're like 5v4 and he's just seen where your setup is. Like, that's for OP as shit. Like, I always thought, like, his fragging distracted people to think that he was, like, one of the best just as an individual player. It's what he was doing as an IGL at the same time that makes it, like, so overpowered it's unreal.
Especially because they had FNX and Fur at that time. So they had FNX, Fur, Coldzera, and it's like, as soon as they get any sort of info between them, so you had Coldzera just baiting the shit. Dude, it was just, oh my god, it was so awful to play again. I'm having flashbacks right now playing against them on Overpass, just like, man, fuck off, like, leave me alone. Like, if there's any tiny timing to be abused, Fur and FNX are abusing it. If you turn your brain off for half a second, they've abused that timing and you're fucked. Like, they were awful to play against. So yeah, Fallen back in the day would be my go-to.
Cool.
Okay.
That's all my questions.
Perfect. I will go next, and I'm just in my order here. I'll go with Corey first. So Corey, going all the way back to 1.6, your entire professional Counter-Strike career, who was the most annoying teammate you've ever played with? And who was the most fun you've ever played with? Not like best or worst teammate. Like the most annoying teammate, you might like him, you might be friends, but who was the most annoying person to play with? And then who was the most fun person to play with?
These are like longer terms or like not
just
2 weeks, right? Like
anything, just the most annoying teammate you've ever had.
Oh, in 1.6, man, I can't even remember all the annoying people I played with.
It doesn't have to be 1.6, just total.
Entire career though.
Yeah,
it's just hard to think back. I think in 1.6, the thing that pissed me off more is people just not showing up for practice. That was like so common because like the salaries and the orgs weren't there to like really enforce anything. So like I used to get really mad playing with Jordan at the start of 1.6, but like looking back at it, like it wasn't really like necessarily Jordan was doing a ton wrong. It was just like he wasn't prioritizing CS because we weren't really making any money. But like for me, I just wanted to be like the best, right? So like I wanted to practice a lot. So I was like, I didn't care I was making no money, you know, like I just wanted to play. So like it's a little bit of a misunderstanding on my part because like I was younger then and I just wanted to be the best. Like all I cared about was just being so good at Counter-Strike. So then Jordan's like not showing up for practice or like, you know, before an ESA line, he's going to like a music festival or something. And I'm thinking like, how's this motherfucker going to a music festival when we got a LAN in 4 days? And I'm like actually mad because like I just think we could be practicing, you know, to be better. And like, you know, he's coming from EG where they used to get salaries and like stuff. And now he's not really making any money because we wouldn't have any salary. So like, I don't fault him for it, but like, as you could see why that would annoy me, right? Like that was probably the most annoyed I was ever at a teammate, but I don't like hold it against him or anything. It's like one of those things that now I'd probably be like in a similar position as him. If I was to like go no salary joining a team, I'd be like, well, you know, I'm not really, you know, depending if like, you know, the goal and stuff, right? Because Counter-Strike was kind of dying at that point, like 1.6. I'm sure Thorin remembers, like, it was so rare to even go to an international LAN as an NA team at the end. But I will say, though, just for people that love Brax, Brax was good in CSGO. All right, he's a good player. Maybe he'll be good in Valorant. Good player. Brax would have been the best CS 1.6 player the game has ever seen if that game existed for 2 or 3 more years. Like, I swear to God, he would have looked like made Neo and Force look like noobs. Like, I don't mean necessarily that, like, like I don't necessarily mean like he was that much more like aim wise skilled, but this guy did every jiggle peek. He fucked with ladders. Like it was like he was bred to play this game. The things that I saw that guy do in scrims, out of this world. Okay, so I actually am kind of disappointed for him because he could have had like some insane like legacy at the end of 1.6 as being like this god, but he kind of came in right at the wrong time. Like, still good for him because he made money off Go and stuff. Besides the, honestly, his biggest mistake that was leaving my team because then he went.
Yeah, that probably was his biggest mistake. Like, I bet he agrees.
Well, serves you right for leaving my team. Fuck you.
If he never left my team, he wouldn't be banned right now. All right, that's all I'm gonna say. Because
Same reaction is there.
We wouldn't have.
Okay, so
or if we did, we wouldn't have got caught.
Yeah, exactly. That's the real answer. Or if you had done it, you'd at least have been smarter about it, right? Use one level of abstraction.
Yeah.
So Brax was your most fun teammate to play with then? Just in the sense you got to watch him, or
dude, I love playing with Brax. Like, I remember. I had a bunch of teammates I really liked to play with. Like, I liked playing with Sean and
fun,
like TCK was probably the funniest person because like when CS players die and they bitch about like how they died. Like, TCK was the best at like bitching about how he died, but he would just make you laugh every time. He'd just be like, "Fucking P250 one shot," like he would just like you would just say like dumb shit. Like, I'm doing a bad job of like doing it, but like he'd always bitch about like how broken the way that he died in, but like in a funny way, and it would just make everyone laugh. And like Sean hates complaining, and Sean would always laugh at like what TCK said, so it's funny. I like playing with Brax just because like he tried a lot, but in 1.6 I remember I'd wake up at like noon or something, and this guy had been pulling all-nighters, and he's in a European surf clan, like literally like they're in like he's in a clan and they have practice at like 7 a.m. and like they're going in and like surfing and shooting each other in the air, and I'm like, Brax, what are you doing? He's like, no, it's fun. And I'm like, yeah, sure, but like what I don't understand, but like I don't know, I just thought that shit was fucking hilarious.
Okay.
They have practice as well.
Yeah, you fucking had practice, man. You gotta get your European fucking surf scrim.
I just can't handle the idea of someone like, will you just take this seriously? We're trying to become the best European surf clan. You practice your fundamentals.
He was really good at it, though. He was like,
well, yeah, practice.
I'm just being the boomer who's the equivalent of like, that's what people do to us in esports, to be fair. Like, what? Playing games and that. But there's levels of elitism.
It's a game in a game.
Real.
But that's why he's good, like when you just play so much Counter-Strike, like it doesn't. I've always said like you don't have to DM for 4 hours. You could play an hour KZ, an hour DM. You could fucking surf a bit, play some pugs. Like the fact you're moving your fucking mouse is still helping you. Like as long as you're not changing your sense for surfing, because like to be honest, surfing's way easier if you use like 10 sensitivity because you can twirl and stuff. But I think if you don't do that, it's like pretty good to still train like your arm movements.
All right, Alex. Do you think getting a university degree has benefited your esports career? In what way and why?
I think that getting certain degrees probably helps. I think it depends what you study and how you use your mind while you're studying, and probably like some degrees I don't see how they could be applicable. Like say a comp sci degree, other than the fact that you're going to have maybe decent hand dexterity on a keyboard, but that's pretty much useless, But since I studied philosophy and statistics, for the philosophy side of things, I think the way that I'm able to approach problems in the esports space is really efficient, and actually it helps me learn faster too. So I think that kind of background, being able to break down a problem to its most essential component, right? Yeah, to like doing all of that and having a routine for doing it, no matter what challenge I'm up against, is pretty good. So for me, yes, I think it definitely helped. The problem is that I spent a lot of time not in the game. So when I was in university, and actually pretty much my senior year of high school, because I was like trying to get into universities, I was kind of away from Counter-Strike. So I kind of, because I played like up to, this isn't like super impressive or anything, but I played it from like 8th grade to 10th grade. I played up to like main, and then so I had like the idea of how I kind of like the like to play Source back then and to play the game, but then I took so much time away from the game that I probably lost out in terms of time. Like I don't know where I could be in my career if I didn't take that time off. But doing all of that, getting my mind away from the game, it kind of makes me feel in a sense like when you play Counter-Strike for days and days and days, and let's say you rack up like, 90 hours in the past 2 weeks or something, but then you take a day break and then come back to it, sometimes that day back is almost like you played better than you did when you were grinding as hard as you possibly could, right? Like, have you guys experienced that ever?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it's kind of like that where I saw the framework of the game all the time, so that when I did come back to it, I already had all of those fundamentals in place. But then when I was challenging myself with new problems, like how do I advance in the rankings? How do I just like being a little bit more goal oriented? I had a maturity to it that I otherwise wouldn't. So like, no, I don't think I got jobs or anything because of a degree, like in a typical, like sense.
Right.
It's like the knowledge and the approach and literally the philosophy of it all.
Funny thing is, though, I don't know if you know this, like just generally people in the chat, but that's a famous example everyone always gives as a philosophy degree. They always try, it's just one of those like things that people who've never looked into it always say is an example of a worthless degree. It's the opposite. That's actually, in theory, just in terms of leveling yourself up, forget what job you're going to get. It's probably one of the best degrees you could get, because think about it, it's all about things like, how do you think? Like, what were the evolutions of thought throughout history? How do you do, like you were saying there, break things down to their constituent parts and then form your own way of thinking about it? Like, that's actually mad useful stuff if you have any job that involves thinking about something, basically.
Yep. All right. So, Duncan, throughout history, you've seen lots of new FPS releases throughout your... Oh, we lost Alex. He's gone.
All right.
Back.
He's back, boys.
Got to make sure sound check. You good, Alex? Not yet.
He just started thinking about the fact that he did a whole degree in philosophy and statistics, and now he's just stuck talking about.
sorry. I like laptop. This laptop is on the fritz. Like I didn't catch what you said at the end there, but yeah.
Yeah, I was there.
No, I'm sure it was good.
It wasn't.
Just start from the top when you were asking the question first, Davey, and we'll just cut it out.
Well, I'll just to like. I think what Thorin was saying was pretty much kind of how I felt. Just like being able, like philosophy teaches you how to break down any problem you have with yourself or anything you're approaching, and you can just logically approach it, and that is just the most useful thing when trying to progress in any field, period.
So,
and without a lot of emotions as well.
It like doesn't teach you emotions, but then your approach to, okay, so I feel like actually I was pretty emotionally unavailable as a friend and boyfriend for a long time. And I think going through philosophy didn't necessarily help me to like become better as emotions.
Shut the fuck up.
No, but seriously, like you can approach it a little bit better.
Logically, I bought her dinner. And
no. No, you have to move away from that.
This bitch has to spread.
No. You move away from it. You have to move away. You have to be able to separate it, is the thing.
No, yeah, you do have to be able to separate her legs. That's right.
Exactly.
Truly.
All right. Anyways, moving on.
That could have been a great point, but we ruined it.
We did. No, we did. We've just shut him. We've shut him right down. No higher thinking allowed here, Alex. No, exactly. Shut the fuck up. All right. Anyways,
save that for the analyst desk, buddy.
Yeah. So, Duncan, throughout your history in esports, as you are known, the esports historian, you've seen many new FPSs be released throughout Counter-Strike's reign as the number one FPS game. Is this release of Valorant any different in any ways than the previous ones that you've experienced? In what way? And should the Counter-Strike scene be worried?
Is it different? So I'm actually going to give probably the unpopular take and say I don't think it is. Because here's the part I'm confused about that no one seems to be able to have a good answer to is I get it that as a game for a random, just a casual player playing where you join a server and you're not with all the stack of players you're playing with, just someone essentially the way that most people play games. They play League of Legends or Dota or whatever, Fortnite, PUBG, all these games as a casual game. I can totally see why Valorant is in that wheelhouse. It's the hot shit right now. It's the flavor of the month. What I don't get is that so many people act like that means that from there you can turn it into an esport. Whereas as far as I can tell, the whole reason why Valorant is appealing to people who play CSGO is it isn't CSGO. It's like a bastardized fun version of it that you can play as a casual game that has Overwatch type abilities and, you know, has more of an appeal to people from other games. So the real issue to me is every game I see that's insanely popular as a casual game, Fortnite, Apex Legends, but PUBG, them all, they all get the same like pop because everyone's like, wow, this is so sick. But how do they make the transition to esport? And that's the problem. I think Overwatch failed at that. I think, actually, I've always said this. People who think that League of Legends succeeded at that just haven't looked at the numbers. The actual number of League of Legends players in the world versus the number of people who play the game competitively versus the number of people who watch the game, their ratio is dog shit compared to the big esports games. Like, they should have like 10 times our viewers, not like, you know, 2 or 3 times. So the problem I have is I think the more successful a casual game is, the less it's probably applicable to the esports scene. So I don't really see this as like it's a CS killer or it's somehow going to... I don't even think it'll be like CS. I don't think it'll be like a game that'll be around for 10 years. And I don't take the fact that, you know, it's got Riot Games and all this big money behind. That doesn't matter. Overwatch showed you that. You can't force a game to be a worldwide phenomenon. It has to have the player base, and then just getting the player base, by the way, was really hard. That's like success 1 as a game dev. If somehow you make it through that gate, then the next gate is, do people want to watch this shit? And that's where Overwatch failed. That's where PUBG failed. That you can't... That, like, I even think you could even probably make a side tangent about what probably makes them more fun as a casual game, makes it impossible to spectate. That's what I think about the Battle Royale games, for example. How the fuck do you spectate them? You can't really. You have to even do it, as far as I know, in games like PUBG. It's not like it is in the public mode. It's some sort of fucked up 2v2
They're honestly
mode
more fun to watch, like, the individual streamer play the game than a tournament.
Yeah, exactly. That's a problem in itself, right? Like, if I want to watch Fortnite, I'm not going to watch a tournament, am I? I'm going to watch whoever the best. I'm going to watch Myth just wreck noobs, aren't I? It's actually more fun in that regard. So if anything, esport kind of goes away from that to me.
Well, I actually think Overwatch could have been a really good game, but I think they did a terrible job balancing it. It just can't more and more shields. Like, yeah, people are going to shit on me, like, oh, you don't play. Yeah, sure, I'm not at the top level. I get it, but like, it's just way too, like, not aim intensive enough. Like, sure, that doesn't always have to be the direction you want to go. And Valorant seems to be doing a little bit better of a job in the sense that there is way more aim skill needed than in Overwatch. In Overwatch, you could literally not even shoot someone and be useful, like in the game. Whereas, like, in Valorant, you still got to kill someone. But I still think, like, the game's just in beta, so obviously it can get a lot better. They can make a lot more changes, but there's so many like wall hacks and like ults that as soon as players get better and have lineups and have like set things, the game's been up for a couple days. You know, like you're telling me in 3 months you aren't going to have like the archer dude that can shoot lasers with his ult through the whole map. You're telling me people aren't going to have lineups for that shit where they can just like murk you from like in like super important spots. Like, you get 3 shots through any surface. You can go into a bomb site and literally aim your arrow in the 3 spots people most likely play as your teams run in. You know, and they don't have to check them. You know what I mean? Like, they could literally use it as like a clear rather than actually kill anyone. So it's like, I think once the players get better and have more of these crazy lineups, the game's gonna be fucking weird. Like, it's gonna be a weird ass game because, like, right now no one knows what they're doing.
Yep, I agree. I think that it's gonna be. I don't think it's any game where there's like ultimates and it's like a class-based shooter. I just don't think there's ever gonna be the same level of competitiveness to it that there is within such a raw sort of base game like Counter-Strike.
As someone who has not followed this at all, I thought the abilities were supposed to be purchased. Like, you're supposed to buy them with money. Obviously, it's class-based. So, like, certain things are unlocked specifically.
So every champion has 3 abilities that you purchase, and they're very cheap. Like,
it costs as much like a flashbang does in Counter.
Yeah. They're like so you.
But they can kill people.
Some of them can, some of them can't.
Right. Okay.
So like one of them, a person makes a wall, and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
The other one, some people have nades, some people have like slowing grenades. It's like whatever. And then
some
ultimates
are way better than others.
Yeah.
Like, it's like Sage, you can literally put up a wall that lasts 45 seconds. You can throw down a sheet of ice that slows everyone, and you can heal and revive someone with your ult. You can revive someone in an FPS. Like, that is so hard to balance. Like, it's so hard. Like, and she can heal someone to, I don't know if it's to full health, 3 times.
Yeah, full health.
Like every 30 seconds, right?
Yeah,
It's a cooldown. It's not even an ability that you have to buy. So, like, dude, imagine Simple goes and gets a pick at 10 health. He gets fucking healed back up. He goes pick somewhere else, gets healed up. Like, oh, he died. Let's revive him. Like, it's fucking crazy.
It is.
Well, it just seems like it's reducing the skill ceiling way too much for a competitive game, which is going back to what Duncan said earlier.
Well, but it is beta, right? So you can make changes. It's not.
I don't think so at this point. Like they would actually have to break up the class system and make every ability purchasable by every person to level the playing field. Treat them like weapons or grenades in CS. Anybody can get anything, but they're not going to do that, obviously. So too far down.
All right, Corey. Who is the most fun person to talk shit to at events?
Probably
like
Tyson,
somebody where you just loved talking shit to him.
Well, I didn't really go to the same LAN and talk to the same person a lot. Like, there's a couple of people it was really easy to get in their heads. Anger was pretty easy to get in his head, but like, it's not necessarily that I didn't like the guy. It's just like trying to win. So like, why not fuck with someone's with someone's head a bit? Like, I think that's like why I wish that like some of the LANs were a little bit closer and like could hear a little bit better. Like I don't know. Obviously, I come from a time where you go to any LAN and people are just talking shit. Like literally, like back in the day, 1.6, people are yelling across. You can find videos of Taz yelling at Forrest punching his desk after he dies. Like people got mad, and like if you're Taz, you're not as good as Forrest. Shocker, right? But like, if you're Taz and you yell because Neo's owning Forrest, or you get a 1v1 or something, you get in his head, he plays worse. That's just smart. Like, that's smart. It's the same thing in like UFC and stuff where people talk shit. Like, you get someone out of their comfort zone, like they play worse. I don't know why that's necessarily a bad thing. Being resilient is a skill. I always said there's no point in talking shit to Brax. Like, people tried. He's just a little robot. He just sits there. I don't even know if he hears it. Like, he just playing. Like, you're wasting your breath. Like, there's certain people like that. There's just no point in talking shit to them. Whereas there's other people that there's more. So I don't know. Anger and some of those people in Source at the beginning, they were like real fragile with shit talking. They like, didn't think it should be possible. So it was easy to get in their head. I kind of felt a little bit bad talking shit to Kenny S, but that's just because I love Kenny S so much. Like he's just an awesome human, but at the same time I want to win. So like I didn't really say anything bad, but like I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like I don't want the person to hate me, but like at the same time I want to win. So.
Yeah. Okay.
The duality of man.
Yeah. All right, so Alex, with this whole thing going on with Astralis, where they've signed their sixth man Esatag, and he's going to be hypothetically rotating in for tournaments, what player on Astralis do you think makes the most sense for Esatag to sub in for at his first tournament? Let's say, where if you were looking at that, be like, okay, we need to sub somebody out, sub Esatag in. Which player would fit best to fill Esatag into Astralis?
Probably two answers for this. One is Device, because he always complains about traveling and just like mental strength, it seems like, is low for him, even though he's hella good. But more realistically, in terms of fit for the team, it'd be Dupree. Probably serves the most kind of simple role for Esatag to just kind of slot into. I think Esatag was a little bit more passive of a player than Dupree is usually for Astralis, but I don't think you would want him to necessarily slot in for Zipnix. So Dupree just kind of has to me, I think Dupree's kind of been the most expendable person on Astralis for a long time, and he's had to play kind of fill spots sometimes, it seems. So Esatag would just kind of make sense there, because it's not. If you watch a Dupree demo, you're usually not going to see anything that's just mind-blowing about timings or like macro decision making or anything like that. Whereas if you couldn't obviously fill like Device or Glaive, they just have too much value for the team. So Dupree just probably the easiest job.
Okay. All right, Duncan. Throughout Counter-Strike 1.6 and CSGO, total Counter-Strike history, excluding Simple Neo Forest, excluding those three, who is the most exciting player for you to watch? Where you watch, you like, fuck, this guy's like, there's something about him. He's got that flair aspect to his game that you just love to watch.
Probably easy. I'd probably just say Markelov at the end of 1.6.
Yeah. Because
like what was insane was he not only was at times the best player, but like think about his style of AWPing. He was just the fastest flicks possible, and he was just hitting them like nearly all of them. What was ridiculous is back then, if you have an AWPer who fires like that, it's like Henny now in CSGO. Half the shots miss. It looks amazing when they hit them in a row, but then you can't rely on that. You can't build a fucking team around that. They built the entire team around this guy. Like the whole reason why Guardian got to inherit the concept of like building a team around an AWPer is because Markov made it happen. That was what Zeus did in Na'Vi. So the crazy thing was they built the whole team around this guy, and he would fire the fastest AWP shots, but then hit like as though he was one of those guys like Fraud, where they just make sure it's like lined up and fucking turn both keys at the same time on the nuke activation before they fire. Like, so he was just doing both. It was just so broken. It was unbelievable. And the guy did it in every final as well. So in terms of just raw excitement, like he's the person that you would pay the highest like ticket value to see. It was just nuts.
You know what's fucked up is I actually totally forgot about him. Like I didn't even that didn't even cross my mind when I was trying to think of people what you might answer. Markelov didn't even cross my mind. And as soon as you said it, I was like, fucking obviously, like that. Not obviously, but like that makes total sense. Markelov was.
Glory can attest to this. He was fucking one of the absolute was pure players to watch, right?
Oh, he was.
Dude, he would just like no scope and do crazy shit that like Delpen at times would be like equal, but never as consistent. Like I don't know. Markov just did it every game. Like there was a reason that like their CT train was unbeatable, and it was him. Like. Yep. Like you get 2 rounds on T side train and you're like, oh shit, like that's bad, but for them it was just fine. They're gonna win like 14-1.
Put it this way, if anyone's played 1.6, right? If you're the guys and you're all rushing out of the pop dog small ladder and you're jumping over, right? Okay, maybe he hits one of you when he would just hit all of you if you went one by one. So the first person he'd hit the other guy through the box, then he hit the other guys, he fell off the. It's like by the time you get to like the fucking whatever it is, like the 5 train, like there's 2 of you dead, the other one's being leg shot, and it's like you can't even bomb rush him at that point in time. Like he was literally just making like highlight rounds just on a regular basis on that map. You couldn't play him.
Yep, he was especially because of how the whole. Like even back then, T sides there wasn't like in 1.6 there wasn't like these open skyboxes that we have now. So you couldn't just smoke spots off from super. No, you couldn't. So there was like other ways you'd have to try to boost on certain spots to peek him or like run boost like you used. Like it was a totally different thing back then. Oppers on CT side, if you could consistently hit your shots, there wasn't the things we have now in the game to push people out.
I swear to God, if you took all the pros right now and put them back in 1.6, the op would be so broken. Like people would do an insane shit. I think the skill level was just lower back then.
Mate,
like
Simple would legitimately have like 1.5 times the stats he even has now. No one would be able to kill him almost.
He would just no scope everyone.
No scopes would be mental, wouldn't they?
Because they were accurate just across the whole map. Like
he would just win clutches 1v4 with an AWP. I'm not joking. 1.6. He would do that.
All right. Who wants to go next? Corey or Duncan?
I'll go last. That way.
All right, do it. All right, Corey, go for it.
First question is we'll go with Davey. So I guess the first part I need to know is when you're on Splyce, how much say did you have on the picking up of like all the foreigners?
So like the first
iteration, yeah.
Is this the one that had like
machine gun, crucial, and
yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, I mean we didn't have a coach, but Professor Chaos was involved. It was pretty much me, Arya. We knew Professor Chaos had wanted to step down for months leading up to this point, but we couldn't find any sort of suitable replacement. So
was
originally,
he also garbage.
No. So originally we were just. So originally we were just going to be replacing Professor Chaos with Crucial. That was just the original plan. And then over about a month and a half, we had decided that we needed that wasn't going to be enough to take us to another level. And we had been talking with the management. Management wanted us to go to another level as well. They had just got a bunch of increased funding. From the fact that we qualified for a major. They made a couple $100,000 off of that in sponsorships and the actual sticker money itself. So they were telling us to start looking at new players if we wanted to bring in new players, and they wanted us to try to go up to the next level. And to their credit, we had tried to sign guys like Alu and JDM at the time. We had tried to sign him, and back then that was when even Alu now is still obviously really good, but he was asking for like astronomical amounts of money that just wasn't feasible, especially at that time. So as far as who we picked up, we had control. We picked who we wanted to play with. We didn't have any sort of management wasn't involved in picking the players. We just picked who we wanted to play with, and then told them, and then they would try to sign them.
All right. So my question, I guess, would be, so if you guys had more total control, because obviously you don't always know. Sometimes management like just really wants a European player or something.
They definitely wanted us to get European players. That was definitely encouraged.
Yeah, I feel like they always kind of want that, but going there, you got what's his name, Machine Gun, who didn't have the greatest English, to say the least. And then you got Crucial and Asilian. Yeah. If you could go back, would you do the same thing? Like, would you not get Machine Gun? Because I feel like your lineup, you guys poured a lot of money into it, so obviously you had the funds to maybe buy out. Would you have gone like all North American? Would you have just got one of them?
Strangely enough, we didn't actually put that much money into it. So the only buyout that had to get Crucial was the only buyout that had to be paid, and I think it was like 5,000 euros from Lowland Lions, which was just fucking that whole thing. I'm not even going to get into all the shit that went down with that, but pretty much they fucking scummed him and scared him because he had signed a contract with them, but they weren't paying him anything. There was no value in the contract. So it was just like, all right, you can just leave. Like, it doesn't matter. And then when he told them he was going to leave, they got like a lawyer to send a letter to his house saying that they're going to sue his parents and shit if he leaves. And it's like, they're making this up, but he got scared anyway. So either way, so we ended up paying a buyout just to sort of keep everybody happy for the most part. But yeah, and then Asilian didn't have a buyout, and Machine Gun didn't have a buyout either. But yeah, I guess sort of to answer your question, no, I wouldn't make the same moves again. We originally, for a multitude of reasons, one, Machine Gun's English was worse than we thought. He was a lot better over text, and we had like talked to him, but there's a lot of things you don't think about, like small things. Like, for example, I'll just tell this story. I'm not going to tell the whole thing, but there was a time in in a match where Asilian told Machine Gun to go anti-flash, and he didn't pick up on the anti-flash part of it. He just heard him say flash. So Tevna, Machine Gun, pulls out his flash and throws a flash like 10 seconds too early because his role on the strat was to throw the specific flash. So he heard Asilian say flash, threw the flash, but it was too early and the whole strat got fucked up and we lost the round. And it made Asilian fucking go off. Right? So it was like, there's just little things like that you don't even, like, you wouldn't even think about it. Well, I'm assuming you would now, but we didn't think about it at the time. We just thought that it would be okay and he could work it out. So yeah, no. The only move
when
I would
realize you're working on that level.
I know.
It just goes boom instantly. Like,
look, it was a fucking disaster. That whole thing was a fucking disaster.
And you were like, wait a minute, can we send this guy back soon? Like,
look, no, look.
Don't worry, Exotic did the same thing, but he spoke English.
Yeah, that's true, actually. But no, the only move that from that whole lineup that I would make again would be to pick up Crucial. I think Crucial's still a really good player. He was really good at the time. He had a ton of potential. I wouldn't pick up Asilian again just because he was awful to play with. Was he a
whiner?
He was a whiner, but we also picked him up. We wanted him to be the in-game leader, and then when he got there, he didn't want to be the in-game leader anymore. So, which was, I guess, like whatever. So Arya was the in-game leader again. But we wanted Asilian. The reason why we picked up Asilian is because we wanted him to help develop Crucial as a player, thinking that maybe they would have some sort of, like, I know Netherlands and Denmark aren't the same country, but there might be a little bit more of a what's the word? Just a little bit of more of a cultural overlap there.
Yeah, most Europeans are bi, so it makes.
You didn't have to fuck him as well.
I'm just kidding.
Jesus Christ!
What sort of requirements?
Yeah.
Hey, can we see that contract?
Yeah, but anyway, so that ended up just not happening at all. I think they did develop a pretty good friendship overall, but it didn't end up working in the way we expected it to. And he didn't really want to. Yeah, because they weren't bi, I guess. So yeah, no. So he ended up not wanting to in-game lead, and then he ended up being like Corey knows Arya. People who don't know Arya is a very calm, chill person. Like, too calm and too chill to be in any sort of competitive environment for the most part. He's very, very relaxed all the time. And one day in practice, Asilian had pushed him to the point where Arya is fucking getting up and screaming at him, like from one side of the room to the other. Like, it was. So yeah, I wouldn't have picked up Asilian again, and I wouldn't have picked up Machine Gun again if I could go back in time. I wouldn't have made those two moves. I still would have picked up Crucial, though. I still think he's really good.
You wouldn't have had the Machine Gun, what was it, the shopping mall story where he picks up some
That's true,
kid,
I wouldn't have had. Yeah. Wouldn't have that one.
Yeah, trade-offs.
Yeah, I was just curious because with some of those lineup changes, like you look back and you're like, "Fuck, what a waste!" Like,
Yeah.
and like you said with
But-
Machine Gun, it's not even really like you don't like Machine Gun. It's like,
Oh,
it's
love
not
him,
even like he's
actually.
bad. It's just sometimes things
And
just
also,
don't work
you
out.
have to remember at the time, everybody in the world thought Machine Gun. If you just got him to North America or Europe, he was so good. Like he was dominating the Asian scene. It was like if you just got him here, he could be so good. So we were like the people that decided, fuck it, let's take the chance. It didn't pay off, but everybody at that time thought that was
No, he
like
did
a
have a lot of
huge
hype.
move. So yeah,
I mean, him, for anyone who doesn't know, him coming over then was like equivalent to Bentek joining Genji. Now everyone was like, right,
Yeah.
finally he's out of prison. He's going to be awesome and so sick.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
a good comparison.
We took
honestly.
we took that gamble and it didn't pay off.
All right, so then we'll go with Mr. Snake here. So again, to just like kind of get like for people that don't know you, like so right now you do like a lot of like desk work, analyst stuff. You make YouTube videos and blah blah blah. Did you originally try to go pro first? Like, was that your goal to like try to be like get to a higher level? Like, or did you kind of want to work in the, I don't want to say background, I don't know how to phrase it, like the media side of things?
I actually always had in mind to get into the media side of things, whether it was analyst work, I don't know, caster work, content creator, whatever that was. But I felt that I needed more credibility because it's really hard nowadays. Like I've seen a lot of people who I think are actually probably decent enough to be higher tier casters or analysts, but no one really trusts them because they don't really have a reason to trust them. So I knew by playing at least MDL level that it would have helped me a lot to get just higher up. So that was kind of the thought process behind it. There was always a goal in place to want to make it sustainable because I kind of was always thinking the next step before our even was on the.
He's crashed.
man.
And
Fucking lost him.
Basically, I wanted to play it. Hello?
Are you back? There you go. You
Ah.
just like,
Oh, it crashed again?
no, you're back.
Oh, you're here. But it did crash.
You said
10
something about like you just wanted to play on the.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to play at an MDL level because I knew that would give me the credibility necessary to begin doing desk work and things. Because getting pro always kind of like, yeah, if I could do it, if I just kind of magically felt good enough, then yeah, okay, great. But I knew that was never going to happen. I knew I wasn't going to just like suddenly become pro. Like I want to be like floppy and grind 9 seasons of MDL to finally get my pro possibility or anything like that. Because I'm older than most of the people that were playing in MDL. I was doing it out of college, so I wanted to start making money and getting it to a point where I could just take it. I didn't want to just get stuck in MDL.
Was it one of those things where like you didn't like you're kind of saying you didn't want to invest the time because you're older, right? But like if you knew for a fact that you could be like capable of being on I'd say like even like a top 30 team, would you have rather done that, or do you like the media thing? Because that's just where.
Oh, okay, yeah. If it were a top, like if it were between 20 and 30, probably not. But if it were top 15, 100% rather just play.
Yeah.
Because that's always just where it becomes the point where it's star and you get to travel and your contract's really nice and it's just fun to compete at that level. So you get to do a lot of the same things that media people get to do, but your off time is spent practicing scrimming but you still go to the same events. So
Yeah, I'm just curious because like for me, when I first came up, it was just like I didn't even care about being like a pro. I just wanted to win. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like I didn't care about having a title of being like a pro gamer. It was just like I wanted to go to these lands and beat these fucks that talk shit to me. Like because like you know what I mean? Like that's all I wanted to do. But like after being around longer, like I've done some stuff behind the scenes. Working with some people for like some coaching stuff like in game CS, and it's actually pretty fun to analyze stuff and to watch games. I think people don't really realize like the work required and I think having the background was good, like playing, like actually experiencing playing versus some of these players. It definitely helps. Like, I don't know if you ever scrimmed versus like any of the better teams. Like,
yeah. We did. I scrimmed against like MIBR and, like a handful of top 10 teams in North America and stuff like that. So, or even some European teams when they came.
scrims are obviously not the same as matches, right?
Yeah.
But like, because there's always the fucking dickhead that takes a screenshot of your scrim and posts it to all his friends when they beat you, and you're thinking to yourself like, we're literally practicing one strat the whole time, trying to get just get it down. Because like pro teams do that. I played Astralis where they literally ran the same 2 strats the whole time in scrims, and we beat them. It didn't feel impressive at all, like it just felt like, oh, they're running their shit. And then there's a certain point where like, okay, they're doing it again. Like, do I just rotate because I know they're doing? You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like you don't want to because you're like, I should let my other guys handle it because I wouldn't normally do it. But like when you play versus these people, like a lot of people, like they'll be like, oh, that player is so bad. It's like, no, these people are fucking sick that are at the top level. Like they don't understand that like even someone like Zipnix will dominate you in a game, and they consider him like the weaker of the links. Like, sure, he's never going to do what Simple or fucking Device does. That's obvious, but like he's still better than 99.9% of the people like on HLTV.org. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, I used to love back in the day, dude, when ESEA first came out, and you would see the like bottom fragger worst player on like, the 5th best NA team just join a random pog. And in that pog, he was Simple compared to the people playing.
Oh, yeah.
And they all just got the biggest ego check ever, because you can tell half of these morons in some open team were like, that guy should be cut. Like, if you put me in his role, I'd do that. And they're just getting dusted off by this motherfucker. Like someone who, when you watch them at a pro level, they don't even have sick aim. Like they're not hitting headshots all the time. But the point is, yeah, you have never played against the guys he's playing against who's just dorming him instantly. Like, so it would be hilarious to watch kids just like, because you could almost just see they were realizing like, holy shit, there's levels to this.
Yeah, exactly. And like the casual players are getting better. Like honestly, like the level is going up in just pugs and stuff, but still, a lot of these guys don't realize the team environment that goes into it as well. Like you're not allowed, like you might be really good at just rushing up Ivy every round on train and fragging out, but guess what? You're not allowed to do that shit every round. Like you're not always allowed to do your favorite thing. So that kind of nerfs you in a sense. Yeah, I was just curious on that, just because like obviously you never know what media people do behind the scenes, because some people, they never really played. Like they never played at a high level, which is fine. You don't have to, right? But obviously in sports, you have the X pros that become like, casters or analysts, and like the same with CS, right? I think you need a little bit of both. But I guess I'll ask Thorin the next question. So this is just a question for someone that's like not really playing. You've never really played with other pros, right? Like you on a team, right? So it's like. So it's like, my question to you is, when you look at a player, because just this is my perspective, so I guess I'll start with that. Like, when I look at someone like XANTARES, right? You watch his, I don't know if you ever watched his stream or anything. Like,
I watched a lot of POV demos. I've never watched him stream though.
Yeah, like this guy literally has some of the best aim I've ever seen in my life. Like, legitimately, mechanically, this dude is a god. Like, I would say he's better than Nico when it just comes to just like how quick and accurate. It doesn't make any sense. So then you put him on a team like Big, and I thought originally, like, okay, this is like really good move, right? He's got like Tabson and these guys. He's got God B there, helping him develop him. So far, he's doing a little bit better lately, and he's never been bad. Like, don't get me wrong. Like XANTARES' bad level is just, he's not a god like that. Like, I think it's a little bit unfair when people say he sucks. He doesn't suck. He's just not dominating. So if you were like a manager or like a coach for these teams, because you've obviously watched a lot of games, when you have a player like XANTARES, or it doesn't have to be him specifically, but a player that's super skilled, like he's good, he's not cheating or anything, he's sick, but he's not performing, what do you think the cause of that is? Because I've always had my own theories of like what causes that, but like, what do you think is the cause for like these players not performing like on different teams?
I mean, like in that, do you mean as like a more general principle? Like XANTARES is just an example, right?
You could use it, yeah. You could do both, but like, yeah.
I actually have watched quite a few games of XANTARES because I was watching him when he joined Big. That was exactly why. Like, I watched when they were Space Soldiers. Obviously, they weren't necessarily worth investing that much time into because they were never going to do that much at LAN. But when he joined Big, especially, I watched quite a lot of his POVs because I wanted to see what the potential was. And I agree with you. The sad thing is, right, obviously his rep is he's the biggest onliner ever, but that's why, is because it's not a joke. If you make it just an online game, because the big problem with online play, I always said, is it's not that it makes the person who's an onliner better, it makes like Astralis not as good, because like they don't have all the edges they have online. Like, you're not shitting yourself when you play them. Like, no one's running real tactics in the same way because it's an online game. You don't want to give everything away. Like, there's a lot of factors that kind of like even up the odds a little bit. So if your whole thing is just individual mechanics, you should pop off online. And actually, I'm with you. I think XANTARES is just, in terms of raw ability, probably one of the best 5 players to ever play online in CS. He's unbelievably good and consistent. But if I had to guess what his big problem is when he joined the team big, it's that he looked as though he just, like, if I had to guess, I don't think he chose the roles and the positions he was put in. I think that God B put him where he thought he should be. And I think that is the flaw, because I think he's an example of a player where they need to be really comfortable. Like, as far as I can tell, when he was in Space Soldiers, I think he had all the freedom in the world in that team. And he just did whatever the fuck he wanted. And then they played wherever they were doing separately. And he looks to me as though he's someone who I would guess probably didn't even have to com much. It was just XANTARES. Like, he goes and does his shit. He tears up the other team, and then the others do whatever the fuck they do. So I think it turns out now, I would probably say get him the fuck out of a team like Big. It doesn't look like that sort of team works unless you're willing to go all in and build the whole team around him. That would be my guess. If you had to keep him in Big, I would literally go to this guy. I would be like, no bullshit. Don't tell us what we want to hear. Just tell me, if I was going to make you the best player in the world, what should I do? Like, what role should you play? How should people back you up? Should we like let you lurk and bait, which I think sometimes he did when he was in Space Soldiers? Should you be an entry player? Would you rather we told you how to, like, do that? Mix that with watch the demos yourself and be as brutal as you can. Just be like, right, he's bad in this area. He's not doing well here. This, like, think about it if you were the opposing coach and you were trying to like scout for this guy. Like, you don't want him to do this. You do want him to do that. And then combine the two and make a team around him. But I do think a player like him, I think what they ended up doing was a waste of time. Like, I feel as though in the end, they did some sort of compromise between that, where they gave him like some roles that were slightly better, because obviously Smoothie went out of the team. But at the same time, I think they sort of abandoned the idea who's going to be the best player. And I think that's probably the worst move of all. Like, if you're going to have XANTARES, you just go all in.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that would apply to most of those players.
Do you think that's like, do you think that's what most teams should do when they pick up someone like a star? Because like that was kind of like my main point was like someone like XANTARES. Like, I kind of agree. You get him, you either do one of two things. You make him the fucking star. You give him every spot he wants on both sides, or you put him as like. You still give him his CT spots, but like you put him as like a second or first in entry and just hope he snaps the fuck off some dude that he sees.
Skills, exactly.
Yeah, and if he doesn't kill someone, well, he's not really a detriment to your team because the entry or dies anyways. But you kind of have to have more skill on your team for that to work. Like if you're wasting your star on entering like that, it's kind of like you said, then it's a waste. But like if you had other people, like let's say. Like, someone like Poison or someone that plays for Complexity, like, yeah, he's doing good, but he was better when he wasn't on Complexity. Like, do you think like more of these teams should be catering to people? Because I do feel like a lot of teams do kind of what you say. They kind of give them like maybe a bit of what they want. They mold them. They tell them what to do. Whereas like when someone's super talented, it's almost like Simple doesn't get told what to do. Like he definitely, you can tell by his personality that he's saying, I want to do this. Like even when he's playing in FPL and shit, he's pretty vocal on like what he's going to do. And I think that's like an assertiveness that not everyone has. Like
very few people are going to have that. Then you got to join a better team. Like, let's be. In fact, this is one of the problems, dude. It's actually I think it's a problem that's a holdover from 1.6, which is for people who don't know. In 1.6, there were no such thing as roles. They didn't exist. You just played in a team, and then you figured out what you did in the team, and you just figured either you volunteered, like, oh, I'll throw that flash and run in, or the IGL told you to do it. The reason why I always stress roles, and I get mad when people are like, there's no such thing as a spot play. It's like no one's saying there is, but the point is, it's the only way to a layman who doesn't know the game, we can quickly explain like the makeup of a team, like the fact that everyone isn't supposed to frag everyone in the head and everyone isn't supposed to be the fucking bomb site anchor and just sit there and never rotate. Like it's a way to very quickly explain to the guy who knows the least about the game, so he can sort of get in on the conversation, as it were. And obviously you let go of the labels once you go in specific to a player, because no one does. Like every support player doesn't play the same even positions, do it? It's not the same thing. So in that sense, in the old versions of the game, there was no such thing as a role. So if I join a team that has like Forest and Get Right on it, obviously if they have any of my positions or roles, I'm not getting them because Forest and Get Right are there. So what always happened if you're the fifth player to join one of those established teams is it's like being the fucking intern in the office. Yeah, you get everyone's coffee for the first 3 months. Even if you eventually going to be like some sick copywriter, you have to you have to get hazed a little bit. You have to prove yourself. And then if you start to show that you can play a role, maybe they give you a bit more freedom. Then, one player retires or gets kicked and it's like you get promoted in a company. But that's actually a dog shit way to make a sports team. Like, could you imagine if in the NFL, some like fucking super hot wide receiver out of college has to play like special teams for the first 3 years to prove that he has, like, you wouldn't do it. The whole point of getting this guy, if he was really skilled, is you want him to be the best player in your team. So in that sense, like, to me, the ultimate example that shows the disconnecting mentality is the 2 times they have recruited Phelps to MIBR. This motherfucker is way more skilled than most of the guys in their team. Like, I actually, no joke, think that if he hits his potential, he'll be like a better version of Fur. I just don't think he ever had the team to do it. If you look at the shit he did on the lower level, every time he leaves MIBR, it's like a fucking spell is lifted and he just dominates motherfuckers. He's so skilled at the game. But when they bring him into his team, they do the shit I'm talking about. They're like, right, Fur has your roles, so you can sort of do this thing over here that's vaguely like it, and don't ever do that there. Don't ever do that right now. We don't do that in our team. That's not the MIBR way. And then they wonder at the end, whereas this guy we recruited, he was popping off before. It's like, you won't let him be that player. Like, what you actually should have done in that team is fucking swallowed your pride and figured out, right, do you prefer Fur or Phelps? If you prefer Fur, then don't recruit Phelps. Give Fur all his positions, and you have to live or die by Fur. If you think Fur's fallen off, and I think he's definitely had periods over the last 2 years where he looked like he was just mailing it in and not even fucking trying, then cut him and bring the new guy in, or bring them 2 in and replace him and put some fire under his arse. But the idea of having both of them and then just telling the one guy who's not the famous one, like, I'm just going to fuck you over completely, basically. Like, I think it was a waste of time both times they brought him in the team.
Yeah, I agree. Phelps is insane too. Like, when he was here on Immortals, he was insane. Like, if you played versus him, it was him and Henny, dude. They're fucking nuts.
Dude,
like,
how
and
about
Henny is
Bolts?
way more inconsistent. Bolts is a god as well.
Corey,
but
do you remember? I think we were playing on the team together when we played against Bolts when he was on. It must have been Immortals. After the first time he had got removed from the classic whatever LG team that they were, and we were playing on Mirage, and he got 50 something kills against us in a Mirage scrim. I'm pretty sure you were on my team, and it was like, dude, because we played 30 rounds and Bolts had like 50 something kills, and you're just like, what the fuck?
No, he was
like,
insane, dude. When Bolts is on, he's insane. He's so good, but like, there's some mental block with that guy, I think, because I don't understand.
Dude, it's the whole scene. Like, the really dark thing about Brazilian Counter-Strike is because there's only one Fallen, and then when he even brings you into his teams, he has this weird, fucked up, like, political way of managing the team. So I actually think, if there was a second Fallen, there would be an amazing second team in Brazil in any area in history. Those guys in Immortals, some of them were straight bangers. Some of the Furia guys now are really good, but there's no other like great IGL, so you're never going to get that out of them. Like, remember, half of these guys, when they joined Fallen's team, weren't the player until they joined his team. He helped develop her and put them impart some of how he sees the game to them. So, like, the amount of talent that was wasted in Brazil is criminal. Because I think all these guys had mad potential. And you notice they all just got destroyed emotionally, basically, by being in fucking MIBR.
Yeah, that's when their roster
people out and churns them, just chews them up, doesn't it?
It feels like Brazil could have another tier 1 team, but they'll never get them all in the one team anymore. You know, like, it's just, there's so much skill there with like
Furia 5-year contracts.
Yeah, I don't know. There's definitely enough talent there to go around, but it seems really odd, like how everything goes. But that's the one downside to contracts. It's like they're nice, but then they also like stop that super team from getting formed sometimes. Whereas, like, I always use Dose as an example because like they just don't care about contracts or something.
Players basically run Dota and they can make any team they want.
Yeah, they just like leave, and I'm like, how do they just leave? How? Like, I could never just leave my team like that. Like, they just fine. Like, do they buy themselves out with their TI $5 million winnings? Like, I don't know. They just do whatever they want. But all right, wait. So now I'm back to.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I guess you guys kind of like. People kind of ask, those questions that are kind of similar to what you're going to ask. So you got to go like make a new one. I was basically going to say it's one of those things where it's like when you're used to play used to play professionally. I believe you said you retired.
Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, because I know some people don't officially retire, but like some of them, like,
I've whatever you want to call it, officially retired. Yeah, sure.
I don't
like
he did actually. He gave you like a solid 15% chance that you're actually still really trying hard.
Yeah,
and you probably just can't make it.
Like some people say they're taking a break. Some people are like they try to focus on something or they want to prioritize streaming or whatever. So like I know there's not always just one way to do it. So
for me, it wasn't just a mentally like like I actually have like I need to have like surgically repaired tendons. Like I'm physically incapable of playing for hours a day anymore. So yeah, no,
So
I'm retired.
if you never had that, would you have kept playing? I guess like my question is,
Yeah.
like, do you enjoy like playing at a pro? Like, do you like that more than what you do?
Yeah, so I always knew, even early on, like before I even became professional, I always loved the idea of casting. I thought casting was super fun, and like the difference that having good casters could make in a game. It could make a game from just being a really good game to one of the most memorable games of all time. And I loved that aspect of it and like being really good at it. When I wanted to go into sports broadcasting, originally when I was like in high school, that was sort of what I was working to like through university towards before I dropped out. So yeah, always been a huge fan of broadcasting. So I knew at some point I would eventually do it. I didn't plan on stopping playing as early as I did. Like I said, it was sort of physically pushed on to me. I have tendonitis in both of my forearms, and I also have an old football or soccer injury from when I was younger. I tore tendons in my shoulder up here, and so it's in my mouse arm. And so after playing for a couple hours a day, starting at about the middle to end of 2017, I started to have to like take Tylenols pretty much every day towards the end of practice just to sort of chill the pain out. And I was like icy hotting my arm it just became it was seriously affecting my performance towards the end of my career, to the point where I was like embarrassed about how bad I was. So that's when I was like, all right, just got to stop then. It's not worth it.
Yeah, it always sucks when like you feel like it's like something's out of your control.
Yeah.
So it's like
One day we'll
like
be
I
able to
say,
inject
like,
the stem cells in there and get that all fixed up
Yeah.
one day.
Yeah,
But yeah, so to answer your question, yes, I would have liked to keep playing for longer, but I'm not that upset about it. I'm happy where I'm going because it was always my career path in my mind anyways. It's just happening sooner.
So is
rather
that
than later.
actual casting or just like desk stuff? Like, do you
Well, so
prefer
yeah,
to do
so
like real?
I would prefer to be a caster at some point in the future. But for right now, I think based on my skill set and the way the scene is and everything, being an analyst makes way more sense for me right now for the next however long, and for the next couple of years at least. And then hopefully at some point in the future, I can transition into casting. But yeah, not in the short term, anyways.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna ask the Thorin and Maui the same question. So you guys like just because do you actually?
I didn't know she was underage, officer.
Do you actually?
We always go back to pedophiles on this show. Somehow, everything always
Dude,
comes back to pedophilia on this show.
Don't test me right now. Like
I know that it wasn't even Corey that time. Usually it's Corey who brings it up.
Listen, we all know he didn't kill himself, so.
No, but so do you both work for Flashpoint directly, like, or are you like contractors, or?
I am just doing analyst work much day by day, I'd say. So it's kind of more like a contractor, I guess. It's just kind of like hired. It's more like freelance, I'd say.
All right. So my question is basically, and you guys can go like one at a time or whatever, but like, so you have ESL, you have Flashpoint, you have Valve, and then you have like whatever other third E-League, whoever else wants to come in.
Blast probably at the moment, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like there's all these people that kind of want to have like more of like a privatized leagues. It seems like more contracts, kind of like limited, limiting teams. I wouldn't say limiting teams, but kind of exclusivity. I believe a lot of people are pointing towards sponsors saying that it's unfeasible to like keep paying people the same amount of money and like they're not really getting like revenue back. So what do you guys think the scene should do going forward in the future? Because from what I see, it's going to be a fucking mess in the next year or two. And I think Valve should come here and do something, or like lay some ground rules or something. That's just my opinion, because I don't know all the backstory, so I could definitely be wrong. I'm not saying I'm like some god in this area, but just from the outside perspective, it seems like there's a lot of shit that could go real wrong in the future.
This isn't even vaguely as bad as it could get, put it that way. And yeah, some of it's on the horizon.
So I don't like where it's going, but I also don't have all the facts. So I'm not going to like put like my whole like I don't want to say anything that just make me look like an idiot. Okay. But what do you guys think should happen? Like, do you think it should be like it was like before, where it's just kind of like all the teams, fuck it, we just go to all these tournaments, we all play in everything? Because to me personally, I think it was too much. Too many tournaments, too many games, too much Astralis versus Liquid. I think there was one point where I watched them play the same finals 3 or 4 different weekends in a row. And like, as a spectator, like, sure, if you just love watching Counter-Strike, it's probably fun. But like, dude, I want that match to matter. You know, like that's always been my thing is like, I want to see that match like 3 times a year, 4 times a year type thing where it's like, oh shit, Astralis is playing Liquid. I'm going to stay up till 4 a.m. to watch that shit. I'm going to fucking order Pizza Hut. And like, you know what I mean? Like it matters. Like right now, it's like, I'm not going to stay up. They're going to play next week in fucking LA and it'll be during my time. You know, like there's no urgency. Like back in 1.6, man, I would stay up because tournaments weren't so common. Like there was like, whereas right now I don't really want to do it as much. So like, just, yeah, you guys can basically just say like what you think is the best course. If you think like bad things are happening, do you think Valve should?
I'll let you go first, Maui.
Yeah. So ideally, I would like it if all the 3 leagues, Flashpoint, ESL, and Blast, kind of like went in a rotation. So let's say the season of Blast is, I don't know, January to February, and then the ESL one is March to April, and then so basically like 2-month chunks, and then each league can have 2 seasons a year, and you would still have a lot of time in the year, so that tournaments can kind of be scheduled around those. That's how, and then maybe the teams participate in 1 to 2 of the leagues, because I don't think anyone would want to participate in all 3, because then you'd be playing like 10 months a year. Wait, did my thing lag again?
You're just your webcam's frozen.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a new profile picture.
Okay, whatever. Yeah.
No, honestly, that's a decent little. You got a little modeling thing going on right now.
All right. Well, basically, I would want it to be like that, and then maybe have weekend breaks between the 2.
I think
he might be gone now.
Yeah, we actually lost him. All right. Also, I'll just chime in really quick because I had an idea, and you guys can. That's probably gonna mess up the overlay, but he'll come back soon. We'll just keep it going. So yeah, I was thinking that what would be cool is if you let these leagues sort of have their fucking free for all that they're doing right now. Whoever wants to sign exclusive with one league, he's already back in the game. Whoever wants to sign exclusive with one league can sign exclusive with one league. Next league, whatever the fuck is going on, you know, they sign with whatever leagues they want and let them run their thing and whatever. That way, like Corey was talking about, if Liquid's in one and Astralis is in another one, then they don't play against each other except for at the neutral tournaments that will happen throughout the circuit. And I think if Valve steps in and makes this major cycle kind of how it is, where like, so for the next 2 months is major cycle, then all of a sudden the teams who haven't played against each other for the first 4 months of the year because they're in separate leagues, now they're meeting each other and they're going to end up playing against each other throughout the major cycle, or like a TI type event ish that happens twice a year, kind of like what the majors are. And I think that would be a good way to balance it, where you still let the leagues do whatever they want to do and make whatever money they want to try to make, exclusivity, whatever the fuck. I'm bored of it now. But
I was gonna get to a point like that. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. No,
my
go
laptop
ahead. Continue.
is overheating like crazy. So, yeah. I don't know. I don't usually use this laptop, but yeah. So that's actually kind of what I was getting at. Just each league has 2 seasons a year. They could have some exclusivity as long as they don't overlap, because that'd be really annoying for viewers. And then have neutral tournaments, which would be majors, or maybe a couple DreamHack Masters, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Thorin, what do you think?
I would go for, basically, I want something that's not dissimilar to what Valve initially tried to do in Dota 2, which is their solution to the idea that there was only the Valve tournaments. There was TI, and then they had majors in Dota as well, which were actually comparable prize money to a CS major, but they weren't as big as TI. Mm-hmm. What they tried to do was to make it so that there would be a coherent tour to the scene. So like the ATP in tennis, or fucking golf, you know, everyone knows, or Formula One, people understand the premise of the tour, you know. And so what they did was they charted out the schedule of, you know, like, this is when there's a major, this is when there's a minor, this is when a major, this is when there's a minor. They went like this, and minors in this sense weren't qualifiers to majors, except that they got you ranking points. Minors were for the like semi-pro. Think of minors as DreamHack Open, and majors is like ESL 1 Cologne. So they made a whole circuit like that. And then what they did sounded awesome on paper, which is all the TOs saw the schedule, went to Valve, and they bid. They were like, right, I want the February major because I'm DreamHack and I've got Dream League and it's going to be in Stockholm. And, you know, they all gave their pitches. And then Valve, when they initially made it, tried to be as fair as possible. So, for example, DreamHack and MLG and ESL or whoever, each did get like, you know, I don't know, 2 big tournaments each or whatever, and it was spread out. Now, the downside to the latter part is obviously you are, in some ways, that's almost like a socialist approach. Like, you get a major and you get a major, and it's like, well, where's the competition? Like, isn't my company better than theirs? Do I have a better product? So that's the downside of that element. So I would kind of want a hybrid of that, which is, because at the moment there's really 3 big entities, and anyone who isn't these 3 big entities is in deep shit, because they're just going to get swallowed or pushed out. So the 3 big entities are Flashpoint, ESL Pro League, and and Blast, and obviously ESL Pro League connects into the ESL Pro Tour. Now, with the way that works, the only real leagues in the traditional sense are Flashpoint and ESL Pro League. So being as, I don't know what ESL Pro League's plans are, but at the moment they do the same as Flashpoint plan to, which is have 2 seasons a year. So if each season is roughly a month, that only has to be a third of the year. So I would just like, if Valve was just like, in a similar sense, right, well, we want majors and we want these leagues, because obviously the point of the leagues in theory is to be where you're going to get the real revenue to pay people and level up the sport. The other tournaments are just something cool that people can do. You divide up the year, kind of not dissimilar to like you're saying, but I wouldn't necessarily make it like you get the first third of the year. Maybe make it like Formula One, where it's like, right, you get the January tournament and then they get the February tournament and then the other one gets the, like that. And then obviously Blast, because it has the overlap of teams that are in both, because at the moment ESL Pro League and Flashpoint, you have to play in one or the other. That's just the way the battle
unless you're MIBR.
Unless you're MIBR, but then again, just let me know if those players are in MIBR in a year from now. So then you go ahead and you have Blast as like one way it would be that it wouldn't just be like you'd only play it and meet at the majors. Somebody you'd meet in Blast as well. It'd mean that you'd have quite a healthy aspect of you're not playing all the time, but you play enough to make it so it's still not like you only meet at the major final or whatever. So you'd get a nice spread of it, because I can tell you, to address what Corey said, that problem of like getting fatigue or burnout from too many matches, or I mean, a way I would describe it is like this. It didn't end up mattering because basically when Liquid and Astralis played in 2018, Liquid never did beat them in any of the series. It wasn't until they got Stewie, right? Here's what would have been the real nightmare. It was bad enough they lost every one. Imagine they'd lost every one, but then won randomly, like the upper bracket final of IEM Chicago or something. They'd won that best of 3. Who'd give a shit? They'd go, right, you won finally, but you won the one that no one gives a shit about, mate. And if they're still winning the tournament in the end, does it matter? It wouldn't actually. It seems like it does now because they never did, but it wouldn't actually. You would have even felt, if you were Team Liquid, like, shit, why did we go ham for that one? Like, we should have waited till the major final to get our win, not that it works that way, but that would be the mentality in your mind. So I would just say, if you watch something like, I think Formula One's the best example of this. Remember, Formula One has all the same drivers race each other every single month, but all that changes is the track, basically. That's it. Now, the reason that doesn't get boring is you have to wait a month between the races. But it's still only every month. It's not like you have to wait 6 months to see them all race. So you get it's like they've nailed like just about how much you want. Like if there was a really big CS tournament, but it was only 1 week every month, the other 3 weeks, it would all be content, teams pracking, would all be getting hyped again. Then if Team Liquid plays Astralis in the final of the next one, they've played a whole bunch of times, but now it's got like such a build-up to it. And there's so much time that Team Liquid could have gone away and been in the lab. For that matter, Astralis they could come back and be even more dominant. I think that would be like
more,
the right...
You have more prep time, right? Like a lot of times when you go to 3 tournaments in a row, like even if you're like, fuck, we suck at Vertigo, you can't really fix it. Like you can go and be like, yo, NAF, you should fall back more from mid and we'll play retake. But like, there's only so much you can do like without actually scrimming it a bunch, right? Like you can make little changes, but nothing meaningful.
So basically, I would want it spaced out a bit more, but like a regular interval, because I also think that would just be cool. Like if in the same way as if you follow the UFC, you don't have a UFC every week. You watch every couple of weeks.
And when they do, they have like fight nights or
exactly. It's a way
like,
to put on the smaller fighters and stuff. That would even be a cool element, by the way. That's how you'd fill out the rest of the schedule. If you want to have one tier 1 tournament every month, have a fucking DreamHack Open on the 3rd week. I'll still watch it if I want to watch some CS. Like I'll try and figure out like, is this Havu team good? It would even be a way, by the way, that tier 1 people would watch the lower level. Because like one of the funny things about the fact that like it's actually ended up working out in Mauisnake's favor that he followed all these NA teams in MDL and like invite level, because I don't follow those teams. Why would I? They're never going to ever be at like an ESL 1 Cologne. So it would actually be a waste of my time to invest like 50 hours studying them. But I tell you what, I would have watched them if there was no ESL 1 Cologne and that week it's just this one DreamHack. Like, I'd give it a go. Why wouldn't you? You'd want to find out the next talent.
I agree. I think the way you put it is like probably the best for like matches feeling they matter. At least for me, like obviously if you're a guy that only watches a CS tournament every month or two, you don't really care. But people that are constantly watching CS, like even if you're like, I don't really care, you're still going to check the scores. You're still going to watch the highlights. You're still going to maybe watch a game where Device gets 40 kills or something. Like you're still going to check it out. Like, but yeah, I think like spreading it out the most. And I actually like the idea of tier 2, tier 3 tournaments, because if there's no tier 1, like you said, you're not forced to, but like, there's way more people that are gonna watch
Yeah,
those lower level teams, and they're not bad. Like a Fours playing a Havu or something. That's still probably a fun match to watch. Like
I even want the pros to watch it, dude. Like I want to live in a world where when that DreamHack Open happens and it's like Gen G versus whoever the fuck in the final of that one, the DreamHack Anaheim. I want to see like Device watching it and tweeting like, "Holy shit, I didn't know this guy was good." Like, wow, they run up and cut. Like that would be cool. That would make us actually feel like more of a community as well. Because at the moment, like those top teams, it sounds mad, but I'm not joking. I guarantee you, Astralis barely even knew who Furia was until that ECS finals. I bet they were just like, who the fuck is this team when they were losing to? I bet they never watched them play in their lives, except like a demo the night before they played them or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you guys think we need Valve to come in and do something? Like, do you think people can? I personally don't feel like
because here's the thing. Here's the problem, Semphis. In the past, basically, I can't even believe when I know now what I know now that this even held. In the past, they essentially just did like gentleman's honor of like, we all agree that we're all going to schedule tournaments together in this group calendar, right? And the only way that held was that people on some level had to be honorable. And I think the only reason, by the way, that they weren't super dishonorable, largely, there was some in some fringe cases. The only reason largely is because everyone was losing money. So if we're all just losing money and getting wrecked on these events, yeah, sure, I'm ESL, so I'm going to take most of the calendar. But you know what? There's no point being an absolute arsehole to you. You're losing money as well. Why don't I let you sort of have your tournament on that weekend and then I'll have mine the next one, as long as I get, generally preferential treatment. There was a little bit of status. Well, the problem with that is that's all well and good when it's like we're all just trying not to be the one who has to leave the scene. When it's like now, when it's like, right, it's fight to the death. I can already tell you, I would guarantee within the next 12 months, ESL finds an excuse to literally take tournaments and put them over the top of someone who already had those dates. Like, it's already been intimated a few times, and I think it'll just happen. Because at the end of the day, when we're talking about the kind of investment that now people are pumping in, because they're gambling that CS is going to be huge and their league's going to be the one that wins, you can't go back to your parent company, MTG, trying to sell you to the fucking Chinese at that, by the way, and go, sorry, sir, but we couldn't actually beat our opponent because we gave them that month. He's just going to be like, either you're fired or fucking be ruthless. Like, the companies don't have values or fucking morality. They just do whatever's legal, don't they, to make money? So I think what you will see is the gloves are going to come off in that regard. That's why I made it like, I guess I didn't make it specific, but the person who I would want to divvy up the calendar, it should basically be someone from Valve, but they probably should be like, community liaison. Now, listen, it's going to be really hard to find that person and make them not corrupt. But
I have volunteered for this job so many times, they never reach out to me.
The problem is we do really need someone, though. Like, we need,
I know.
Like, put it this way, an example to me, I'll just give it off the top of my head. Another would be like a Sean Gares. If Sean Gares really had no stake in any of the tournaments and he really believed, like, I want to see the best scene, I could vaguely trust someone like that to take these petitions and not be an arsehole,
Mm-hmm.
But it'd be very hard to make that person not corrupt for obvious reasons.
Obviously. That's what I said. Uncorruptible.
I'm Canadian, dude. Like, literally,
perfect.
We can't. We're not allowed.
Yeah, no Canadians have ever been corrupted.
Yeah.
All right, so... let's move on to.
No, I was gonna do one more thing that kind of ties in with it. So, like, all right, so obviously we have like Corona, right? So we're all like locked down. Pretty much every country.
Corona, like, that's very clear. I do not have the coronavirus.
The world, no, yeah,
yes.
The world has Corona. Pretty much everyone's locked down. Like, some countries doing better than others. That's not really what this is about. But like, pretty much everyone's like flight restricted. Very hard to fly around. Do you think this is going to cause tournaments, organizations, funding to be dropped? Because I mean, the economy's going to go down.
It already is
pretty
happening.
much. Like,
yeah, it's already.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's like guaranteed. They're not sure how big of like a recession things are going to happen. Like, obviously, every country will be a little bit different. Some are going to get hit harder than others. Do you guys think that this is going to have like a big impact on like pro CS or big tournaments, prize monies?
It'll be huge.
Yeah, I think it's going to have a massive impact. I think we're not going to, like, for example, there's not going to be any big new renegotiated contracts being announced in the next 3 months. Like, if contracts are expiring, contracts are fucking expiring over the next however many months. Thankfully, I think most people's contracts probably expire at the end of the year. But I think we'll see, there'll be players getting paid late, or, payments not coming through from sponsors, etc. I think over the next 6 months. You might literally,
no joke, see players become available on the market purely because when their team is unable to pay their payroll, some of these contracts say, as you'd imagine, like, eventually when you haven't been paid at a certain time, you're just a free agent.
Yeah,
most contracts have like we have 30 days to pay you after you complain, like, from not being paid. So I could definitely see people getting out of contracts. It does give them some wiggle room to to generate funding. So like someone like Simple is probably not going to get out because they'll do their best to gather
You'll just
that
pay
money.
him first. Let's be real.
Yeah.
He'll just
That's
be
what
the
I
one
mean.
who gets paid.
We have one member left. Simple.
That's all you need, honestly. Just turn your stream on and play FPL. Simple. You're paying everybody's salaries this month.
Exactly. No, yeah, but that's the one thing I've been kind of concerned about because even, as we know, like there's a good chance flights aren't open even till the end of the year. Like, I think a lot of people are too optimistic on like when things are going to reopen, and when things do reopen, they're reopening in your own country. They're not like, oh, we're fine, borders open. Like they're fine here. We'll open some restaurants. People can go back to work. I still think like pools, cinemas, gyms are going to stay closed till the very end. So I don't think we're going to be flying to events very soon. And even if we are, we might not have any crowds. That kind of.
And by the way, listen, I know everyone's going to think, but Katowice was still fine without a crowd. There is actually, like, Katowice might be the rare example because I imagine they'd probably get that stadium for free. There's literally no point putting on a tournament event and then not having a crowd there. Like you literally need to leave even like the 200K of ticket sales. You're going to lose money anyway. So imagine you have to pay for the venue or you paid a deposit and then you don't get the sales. Like you're just going to be wrecked. Like the fact that ESL, their parent company, said they have to cut all this money. That money's just going to come out of events. Like, I don't know where else anyone thinks it's going to be. That's like, luckily for them, in Germany right now, it's basically heavily intimate. There's going to be no ESL 1 Cologne like that because they're locked down until the end of August. So take ESL 1 Cologne off the market, probably take like ESL New York or whatever the fuck that tournament is. Take most of them off the bill. There might be ESL Pro League. There might be the odd other one. But I think what will happen is a lot of TOs will just see this as an excuse / a necessity to just slash the tournaments, just get them out of the scene.
Yep, I think
this will be the year that has a fucking asterisk next to it, sadly.
Yep. In all pro sports, esports, everything, pretty much across the board. But that's just what happens. Let's stop.
We've still got something to do, though. At least we can still have.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
Exactly. And
it just makes the NAEU matchups more difficult because obviously we can't really play each other. So it's like if Navi goes off and they're just owning everyone, but Liquid's going off over here, it's going to be like, oh shit, I want them to play, but you're not going to be able to see it.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get that wait time we wanted in between the Liquid Astralis games.
Yeah,
it's not gonna happen for a while. Yeah,
Corona.
All right, let's move on to Thorin's questions now.
All right, Mauisnake, I've got one for you here. So what I want to know is this, right? Almost everyone who was a pro or in any way a competitive level player, right? Whenever they're watching the games, they either go with the classic, like, Lurpis style, like, I just mute the casters anyway, and I don't even know how good they are, even though they then criticize all the casters, so obviously everyone's lying. We all know no one ever mutes anyone in a fucking video game. So, right, when they say that, the whole reason they say it is because they're implying, like, the casters don't know what the bloody hell they're talking about, unlike me, the professional level player who knows everything. Right? Most people, as a result, always think when they become like an on-camera personality, like, this shit's going to be easy. Like, they're just talking absolute bollocks. What is it? What was the expectation level versus what is the reality like of actually doing it?
I'd say that when you're delivering in person, there's definitely a higher level of stress. Because right now, like, if I'm doing a podcast, it's pretty easy for me to just kind of, like, I don't have to have any kind of presence, or like I could be changing how I'm seated, like scratch my back or some shit, and I don't think it looks bad. And when you're on a desk or like an epicenter, for example, like in the final day, it felt like the crowd was so loud, there was so much kind of like, it was hard for me to even hear myself talk at times when I was trying to deliver analysis. So there is a level of pressure where you could flub something. You might missay a person's name and you don't want to backtrack. So you might make a mistake on the desk that you otherwise wouldn't. Especially if you're a caster. Like, I'm pretty sure when I was even when I was casting with Bardoff and there's no crowd, like, I would harken back to something that happened on a round. I might have said the wrong player's name. So then if chat really cared and it was a huge ass event, huge ass game, people are going to be like, no, that wasn't Taco that did that was Fur or something like that. So you can sound stupid very easily and you're not going to catch yourself. So
no one will give you any leeway either.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, look, you said it. Look, you meant it. Like, I'll give you an example without mentioning names. You know who I'm referring to. Someone who we worked an event with said just literally the wrong name, and so they said this player will be the best in the game. And then, like 10 minutes later in the agreement, they were like, I didn't just say that player, did I? We were like,
Yeah.
We're like, that's the totally wrong player. Like, shit, I picked the wrong name. And they just had a brain fart and they just said like a different teammate's name. So now every fan would think they're a moron for saying that's the best player.
Yeah.
If you actually knew the point they were making, it's not like they were wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So like, you can't correct yourself as easily as like, let's say on a podcast, it's like, oh no, by the way, I was talking earlier, I meant to say this, because that would just ruin the flow of the show in a way that you don't want to do it.
You have to just take the L, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You just either have to do that, or you can correct yourself on Twitter. But if you do that too much, you look like you're dumb or something. Or you
I also find it hard how you don't realize how short the segments are going to be when like the first time you're doing it. You don't realize how much time you're not going to have, and especially a lot of the times I haven't worked on too many different broadcasts, but I know with ESL broadcasts in particular, they often have, especially post game, they have a very sort of specific way in which the broadcast is going to go. So like they'll have a graphic pre-made and it's a player from the game, and you might not have even wanted to mention that player, but they have a graphic from that player that comes up, and then all of a sudden you have to think of something to say about that player in that game when in your mind you had like a totally different point you were going to make. And And I think that there's certain guys like Sponge, for example, who's unanimously, I think, the best in the scene right now. He can manage to still make every single point he wants to make within the time frame that is given to him, and that's like a really I didn't realize how difficult that was going to be able to do that.
It's really difficult. On the other, similarly, is just if a host asks you a question about a team whose angle you weren't really looking for. Mm-hmm. So if Monty asks me about Havu, but I was more thinking about the perspective of MIBR the entire time I was watching, then you're kind of like grasping for straws sometimes. Just a little bit.
Yeah. Let me think, what would the next one be? Right, I've got one for Semphis then, right? In CSGO, we obviously had some really fucking amazing 1.6 players who tried to play CSGO, and either literally it didn't work and they quit. It's like Trace is obviously a good example, or they played and were just like not as good as they ever were. Markov most of his career. Neo's probably the most standout example ever, right? Does the fact that some players who are 1.6 players, Get Right and Forest, the best contrasting examples, were arguably as good or maybe even better at times in CSGO versus 1.6, does that make you think that any of the really great players, like we're talking like Hall of Fame, all these names are Hall of Fame level players in 1.6, in theory, do you think all of them could have been really good at CSGO? Do you think the game is somehow fundamentally different that wouldn't have allowed them to? Because I can tell you in cases like Neo's case, I'm fairly friendly with him. He tried everything, mate. Like, I think he genuinely, like, he might have put more hours in CSGO than he did in 1.6. Like, I've still to this day, it's a mystery to me why he was never a monster. So what's your take on that as someone who played both games and obviously you saw all these players play?
I mean, it depends on how far you're going back, because I don't think, like a Spawn would have been very good. I mean, obviously, like if it came out in his prime, sure, he would have been good. Like if the game came out in anyone's prime, I think they probably could have adapted.
I mean, more people, who were good at the end of 1.6. So
end of 1.6, yeah. Well, we have a decent amount left. Kerrigan, Forrest, Get Right, some of those guys. So I think a big problem was a lot of people just didn't like the alpha, so they just didn't play at the start. Like they try to come back too late. Like a lot of these guys, like even in Trace's case, he didn't adopt early, and I think he would probably do better now than he would have done back then. Because back then it was like the Wild West, man. Like Wallies, people run through mollies. Like, and Trace was kind of that Astralis type player. It's all calculated. If this happens, I do this. If this happens, but there was no if I do this, if this happens, I do this. It was like if I do this, I react to the chaos. Like that was like kind of the start of CS:GO. So I think, well, his skill obviously was down. Like I think his brain was there that he could have been like a Zipnix or someone, like for a team if he would have kept with it, but I think some of those heavier, like aim-based, scrimmier players seem to do better in Go from 1.6. Like people that took a lot of duels, like Force and Get Right, dude. Force didn't give a fuck, in 1.6. He's going around fighting people, and he's still kind of like that. He's still going for battles, still going. I think the players that relied off of a lot of the mechanics in 1.6, I think, did worse in Go than the players that were relying on just killing people. Like someone that I always thought would be better at CSGO was Maudie, actually. So I'm not really, like, to answer your question, I don't really understand the difference, because Maudie was someone in 1.6 that you guys probably know, he just fought people. Like literally, he just was like, "I'm better than you. I'm going to kill you." So he goes and do it, which in theory should have worked out pretty well in CS:GO, especially at the start. Maybe not as well now because I feel like now people have better setups, crossfires, and all that kind of stuff. But in theory, I just thought like some of these players I don't really know. Like someone like Neo, I think maybe his downside is willingness to do too much support and be the IGL. Like maybe he would have been better if he was like forced and he was just kind of more greedy and he was like, no, I'm the star. I'm gonna be the star. I don't care who I'm playing with. I was the best 1.6 player. I'm gonna be the best Go player. Like if he maybe had more of that mindset, then he would have done better. Because I think a lot of players do worse when they start sacrificing. Like, and I notice this even with myself is like the more often you're like, yeah, I'll play that spot that they don't want. Like, I'll do this. Like, you just naturally get a little bit worse because you're not doing your strength, So then you're not building on your strength. You're losing your strength and you're not that good at your weakness. So it kind of just makes you a worse player overall. Maybe if Neo was just like, was more catered to in his team, but he was the smartest one on the team. So he probably felt like I need to call strats. I need to be the one to do this because I think CSGO is actually a more tactical game than 1.6 overall, with all the smokes and mollies and flashes. So someone smart is like him is ideal. Like they won a major, they won tournaments. They're really good. So I don't think his career was bad or anything. I don't know. It's really, there's so like many scenarios that could go. So I don't know. Do you agree with that necessarily, or is that
No, I just wanted to know what your perspective. I think it's genuinely a mystery. Like I think it's one of those ones where, like, for certain people, I noticed for each person you gave a different reason. So I kind of feel the same. It's like I don't really know what inherently it is about the game because the problem is, I won't lie. In the early days, it just made me think CS:GO was a way worse game. Whereas now that I've seen what Nico and Simple and like the truly godlike players in CS:GO can do, that can't be entirely true.
Yeah.
Like even if I prefer things about 1.6,
I do think the early adopting. Like, I do think the early adopting helped. Like, Nip switched first. They've been Go players. They didn't switch later. Like, Kerrigan switched later with Fnatic still kind of, like, remaining. But he was an in-game leader. He was never the most skilled player. He was just using his brain, right? Calling strats, setups, and he still understood the game. So he never really needed to be a monster. Even though people don't remember, Kerrigan actually was insane in 1.6.
Pretty good fragger,
Like he was like really good. It was like if you compared him to his current CS:GO level, you'd be like, "What the fuck?" I thought this guy was like some nutty ass player. And I'm not saying he's bad, but like skill wise in 1.6, he was really good. So yeah, I don't really know because I definitely always felt like I was better in 1.6 than in CS:GO. Not that I felt like I didn't feel like I was double as good, but like something about how 1.6 played, man, no peekers advantage, accuracy was kind of rewarded a little bit more with less moving and strafing. Like even playing Valorant, I feel like a little bit of nostalgia when I get hit and I just get like fucking stapled. Yeah, I get stapled to the ground and I'm like, and I die and I'm like, and then I think to myself, fuck, that's annoying. And I think to myself, no, that's good though. Like I think like I like that. Like
so
even though,
in 1.6.
Yeah, like
someone.
Because it does punish stupidity, like I found that the last couple days I played Valorant, I purposely just tried to push and rush people. It's really hard. Like the people can be like 4 and 10 and kill me, and like even though like aim wise I'm better than a lot of these people because I'm not. That's not a brag. They're just bad. Like you're just playing versus random people that come from like
FPS games.
Yeah, they like you can tell. Like I watch some people. Like I'm like, oh my god, like has this guy ever played an FPS? But I'm just practicing random things, and I just noticed like I can get killed from what I consider zero skill. But like that's not necessarily a bad thing because in Go it's really hard to punish aggression. So in 1.6 and that thing, you could in Valorant stuff, it seems like if someone pushes you, if you're angled right, that guy he's dead. So I think that plays a part too. Just people that played really passive in 1.6 always doing the right thing. It doesn't translate as I think it's actually harder to play like Zipnix does than it is to play like Electronic does. And I know people think that's like crazy. I don't mean the skill aspect, but like just being effective at your role. Like go and try to be a pussy in CSGO. Like try to always fall back and never die and get a kill or two. It's hard. Like it's harder than just fighting people and getting a kill or two, but sometimes dying. Like I don't think people really give those players enough credit. The ones that are effective at it, that is. Mm-hmm. Because obviously there's the cop-out players that are like, oh, I'm a passive support player, but they just die. Like I'm talking about the ones that actually are passive and still get kills.
Right, Davey, my question for you is this. Right, I can remember there was a tournament. I think it was actually the first tournament you were at that I was at, which was that World Championship at the end of 2015.
Oh,
the one where
TWC.
Frag ran it, and it was all countries. And as a result, if people don't remember, the weird thing about it though was that because it wasn't like a massive tier 1 tournament, a bunch of countries, like famously Sweden, sent like all the fucking IGLs. So like Sweden team wasn't like Forest and Olaf Meister. It was like, you know, fucking Exist, a Devil Walk, and some other like
Palf.
Exactly. So they had like tier 3 and tier 2 in there, mostly all IGLs. But in your team, Team Canada, you had NAF, right? But this is back when NAF's barely, I mean, at the time he used to be what, like 16 years old or something? He's really young, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he would have been 17. Did we have twists at that first one too?
I don't think so. I don't think he did. He hadn't come on the scene yet.
It was me, Semphis, FNS, NAF.
Maybe FNS? Is that
but who was our...
I
No,
thought
FNS
Twist
was
on
there.
this.
Twist definitely came the second time. I don't remember if Russ was there the first time though.
But anyway, the question I was going to ask you was this. Is right. Listen, if you find any brilliant sports star, every fucking documentary is like everyone who like knew him in high school. Like I always knew he'd be a Hall of Fame player. You're like, shut the fuck up, grandma. Like, no, you didn't. Like that's why you made him like, you know, a fucking bench player on your high school team. You daft cunt. Obviously, you didn't. So what I want to know is this: I actually personally find NAF to be a really weird example because when I watched him in those early days, like when he was in Denial and those teams, and even when he was in Optic, I would have bet you money he would never be the player he is now. Because back then he was mad streaky and like sometimes he looked like an idiot almost. I didn't know he had that problem, to be fair, where he's like 10% hearing in one ear. It's like some of these things you just don't know back then. So I would have said he's just someone who has like some skills, streaky aim, might never make it. You were playing with him back then. Like, could you actually see any elements that like this guy could be? I mean, let's face it, like a year and a half ago, this guy was fucking unbelievable. A year ago, even he was like one of the almost all-around players in the world.
It's also real quick, just because Daps was our 5th at that event too.
There
I
we
think.
go.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, back then, even just talking like with the players in the scene and playing with them, Naf was always a guy who everybody knew how skilled he was, but he was just, everyone was like, oh yeah, he just doesn't have the motivation. He just doesn't have the motivation. That was always what was said. He's like, yeah, he's just not that into it. Like, he's really good, but he just doesn't care that much. That was always sort of the thing around him at the time, which was always super frustrating for me because I was like the exact opposite of that. Like, no natural skill and trying my fucking ass off just to be
level.
Yeah,
shit.
Exactly. just be able to get to play, you know. So it was like super frustrating for me at the time. So I was like,
coach is like, God damn it, Daff! If you just played with a 10th of the heart, Davey, you'd be a champion. And that's like, shit, I don't give a fuck, bro. I'm just gonna hit this blunt and fade out.
Yeah. Something like that. So, but yeah, everybody knew how. Of course. But yeah, no, everybody who played with him or played against him knew how good he was. It was just a question of is he gonna eventually get the motivation? If he is, he's gonna be great. If he just stays how he is now, he'll just continue to just sort of level out. So lucky for him and lucky for the North American scene, I guess, and Counter-Strike in general, because he's so fucking talented. It's amazing to get to watch him do some of the shit that he does sometimes. Like that E-League final with Optic was just fucking incredible. Like just an amazing performance. So yeah, I guess to answer your question, yes, we knew how good he could be, but we didn't know if he was ever actually going to reach that potential.
Okay. Right, Mauisnake. Well, here's the thing. You know, you've gotten a sense now of my sense of humor, which is I won't lie. If someone's a bit of like not that confident, I will actually treat them with very kid gloves. Like if anyone notices, I don't really roast Potter much. You know, I kind of just try to set her up and help her to get her points off and stuff. But if I think people have got a little bit of tenacity, you know, they can handle it a bit. I like to actively put them in traps where they're in really difficult situations where there's no good answer and everything. Because guess what? Everyone should have to experience what I do on a regular basis. If you want to play on the same court as me, motherfucker, I'm a D you up 93 feet and then I'm slamming it in your face every time. So here's the question, right? That there's no good answer to, but it's going to be fun, right? You are made the coach tomorrow of Team Liquid. And we're back in a world where we're at LANs, we're not just playing online, etc. But here's the scenario, okay? If they don't win the next major, you are killed with a firing squad. What do you change? You just gave a perfect moment, Service. What do you change so that you aren't literally murdered by a firing squad? Can't change any players. You've got these 5 players.
Oh, can't change players?
Well, okay, maybe you can change one player then.
If I can change players, I would
I
actually.
want to see what the harsh thing you'd do to me, because maybe you have to win. You got to win.
Run away, hide.
Chance. I've given you some good pieces here.
Yeah. Okay. How many players can I switch?
You can
I'll just switch
one
all
player.
5 for Astralis. No,
You can
okay.
switch one player.
Okay. All right. One player. I would probably switch out. I'd probably switch out Nitro for Cirque, and I would make Stewie IGL. And overall, I would just tell Stewie to call with a lot more quick tempo, especially against teams. And I would actually say look into Stanislaw's early aggression like playbook a lot, because Stanislaw knows how to use numbers to get control really fast using just straight firepower in ways that I don't see Liquid do, which is the craziest thing to me, because you think, like, what the hell are you doing with that lineup if not just using your firepower? Like, we see all the time they slow down too often, and sometimes they give up even advantages like 5v4s in ways that it's just like, okay, you let the other team get back into this by playing slow and not just grouping. Like, play with a little bit more intensity and tempo and try to plant the bomb before 35 seconds every time. Like, it's weird how many times they get into these tougher situations because the round breaks down, and then some of the older veteran players that have no business in a round just kind of find an in on it because something like a smoke fades, or like or they finally group up and got info across the map. I think that the way Nitro plays is too afraid too consistently.
It is amazing to me, by the way, because I mean, I say this as if I was just an outsider. I didn't know any of the players. It is amazing to me that they haven't just studied the blueprint of Evil Geniuses, the team that they beat all the time and has beaten Astralis a whole gang of times. Well, they can't fucking beat Astralis. But the reason why I say that as all like, wow, it's crazy. It's not if you know the players. Like, these motherfuckers aren't in demos. They don't give a shit. Like, they really think so. I'm not, listen, I don't want to disparage all of NA, but these are your heroes. The players that you guys are praying to beat the greatest team of all time are literally using logic. Like, I just wasn't feeling it that game. I kind of like the confidence going like, holy shit. Like, when you hear that, you just out immediately. It's like, right, this was fun. I'm just going to end the call now. Like,
I think we might have lost Alex again, but he does. He's trying.
Oh, there we go. He just lagged a little bit. He's back.
Hello.
Back.
Okay. I think it's good, right?
Yeah. There we go.
Okay. Thank God. All right. So yeah, I just don't like sometimes when the round breaks down and it's like a late round 2v2, 3v3. I think they weirdly struggle with those situations more than they should. And if they just played with faster, just kind of push their advantages a little bit more and harder, that could work really well in their favor. It's almost like they want to do the late round, wait for the opponents to make mistakes and things. But that's kind of what you should do if you think the mid-late round scrimmy shit goes against you more often than. Like, you should just group up and hit things, and sometimes you will run into a stack, so it's like, but they need to play to win more as opposed to playing to not lose.
Okay, I'm with you on that. Right, Semphis, here's a question. This is going to be a pure hypothetical, so you can approach it any way you want. Right, in everyone's career, there's like players where like it talked about he might join our team, or you get an offer and you're like, you do that thing where you give it a week, and so for the first 2 days it's fun, so you think, yeah, maybe I would do that. But then you go, I'll just stick with the team I'm with now. Is there like one big move in your career, either someone who you should have let join Cloud9, or a time when maybe you should have joined another team, or a team you could have made? Is there like one career move where it's like you zigged when you should have zagged, and it could have actually like had a big impact? Like, maybe you play with some godlike player, maybe you even win a fucking major or something. Is there like one move you can think of that could have changed it all with the hindsight that you know now?
I mean, there probably is like something that I could have done. I think I like everyone that I played with in Nylum, but like when I caught for Cloud9, I had more offers at the time than just them, but I chose them because I like them as like friends, and I didn't want to travel as much for a bit. Like, because I don't know if you guys remember, like the end of Cloud9 schedule was fucking insane. Like, I was kind of overflying, like, and I think that's like something that it's hard to deal with, when you're just like, you're just gone all the time. And I was just tired of like always being gone.
So you could have been in like Team Liquid or CLG or something?
I wouldn't say maybe Liquid, but like, I can't remember all.
Like, they were around the same level.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me I can't remember all the offers I had. I just remember I had like 3 or 4, and I remember one of them went away. I don't think I ever got an offer from Liquid though, to be honest. But I can't, like I said, it's so long ago, I can't remember. I just remember I had a couple things, and the roster names or the team names were different than they are now. But yeah, there's just like that was probably the time where like I probably took too much of like that I'm gonna mentor people approach and like try to build a new team, where it's like it's so much work, like it's so much effort, even like with TSM and stuff. Like it's a lot easier to join an established team that's doing decent or good than it is to like make a new team. So I think that always puts you back. But I kind of knew that going in, so I can't really. It's not something that I just think is a terrible
You kind
choice.
of chose that on purpose.
Yeah, it was kind of like a purposeful choice. I was hoping we do well, but I thought in my mind like it'll take us a while to get good. So like I'll have a little bit of break at the start, and I liked a lot of the people on the team. You know what I mean? Like in the sense of like I wanted to play with them. So it was like they're more fun to play with. I like them more, and I did think we could be good. It was not one of those scenarios where I'm like, oh man, these guys are just like a paycheck and I don't have to travel. It was not like that. It was like we're still working hard. It's just I got to be home for a little more, and then I was hoping like after a little bit we'd get to a point where we'd travel more, and then I'd be fine. You know, I only really wanted to break for a little bit. It wasn't like I never wanted to travel again. It was just in that time. You know, you get cut. I was kind of emo from the getting cut thing at the time. It's just I don't know. It wasn't the best way for me to have been cut, I don't think, especially when you play with some of these guys for like 5 or 6 years. You know, it's a little bit different than you're on a team for 6 months and you get cut. It was like you play with some of these guys for a really long time. So first time kind of playing with newer people again as well. I think like in terms of pickups, you know, I think a lot of the lineups could have been done a little bit different too. Like, you know, Sean really wanted Shazam, and I think everyone kind of went along with it because Sean was so adamant on wanting an aggressive opper. But I think we probably could have done better with JDM at the time. Like, I know a lot of people don't like this is back then, you know, so that like the skill levels are different. It's not like the same players as right now. And that's not hating on Shazam or anything like that, but I think the rules would have worked a little bit better, and it would have been a little bit better of an atmosphere too, like if we had Josh on the team.
Okay, right. My last question is obviously for Davey. So it's going to be like this, right? I've been thinking about this topic a lot with the whole Flashpoint thing because we have that thing built in where you get fined if you're not in the top 20. And one thing I even thought about that no one else seems to have even considered with that scenario is it's going to actually make certain teams, MIBR is an obvious example, it puts them in a way tougher spot than certain other teams. Like if you're just a team, for example, that has all NA players, you can recruit everyone from NA and anyone who speaks English. If you're MIBR, you have to recruit someone Brazilian or who speaks Portuguese. So just the talent base of how you can upgrade your roster, etc., makes me think in the future, maybe we have to, if we're going to have these big leagues where there's so much money invested, maybe one day it will just be that we break the whole like countries thing in Counter-Strike, and it'll be like Dota or League of Legends. You'll just have teams, everyone will speak English, that'll be the lingua franca, and you'll just have teams that are made up of the best players you can get. Because for example, like Mad Lions, when they had to replace Hunden, the reason everyone flamed them is because they couldn't recruit fucking Glaive, could they? So they had to pick up someone that was going to seem dodgy. If they'd have been able to pick anyone who spoke English, they could have brought in all sorts of legendary IGLs and, you know. So I feel like if you want to do the sporting angle, it feels like it might be easier if everyone goes to full international lineups. What's your thoughts on like whether we should do it? Like, would you like it to be a world like that where in theory it's like the NFL and you just pick players, you don't think of any of these things, what country they're from, what language, you're just making the best team you can. Would you prefer Counter-Strike like that?
The short answer is yes. In theory, I think that would be the ideal situation for most teams, right? Like you said, you just build the best team on paper, the team that you think would be the best. Ignore cultural things, ignore the language, ignore whatever. If you could just do that, I think that would be the best, like in theory. Although, like we talked about earlier, in practice, when you're actually playing with people who English isn't their first language, in Counter-Strike, which I think is different from most esports. I'm sure I know you watch a lot of League of Legends stuff, and other people here maybe watch Dota stuff. I don't know how it works in Dota specifically, but a lot of the times they do like these listen-ins for League of Legends, where during a team fight you'll be listening to the comms, and all the comms are people just screaming out champion names.
Garbage. Yeah.
Those are the comms that they're making.
White
right?
noise of champion names and hero
you're literally
names,
just screaming out champion names is their comms. In Counter-Strike, there's so much more that goes into comms in Counter-Strike. And I think comms are one of the biggest differences between tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 teams, is because the skill isn't actually all that different. It's being able to communicate things effectively, being like taking the information, communicate it effectively, and then that the people on your team being able to receive the information you're communicating to them and make the best decision given the information that they've been given. So in Counter-Strike, that's so important. so when you're playing with people where English isn't their first language, or not even necessarily their first language, if somebody isn't very good at English in general, even if it's like their second or third language, but they're just not very good at it, it'll make a huge difference to how the team actually plays. I think that's one thing. Well, you guys were talking about XANTARES earlier. I think that's one thing that had a huge effect on him when he first joined Big, was the whole Turkish-German thing that really, really affects people a lot more than you would think. And I saw it firsthand on a team with people where their first language wasn't English. And it has a huge effect on a player's potential and the way they can play. So even though in theory, yeah, I think that would be ideal if everybody's English was good enough to make it so that all the little things don't matter as much or whatever, then yeah, that would be ideal. That would be a good place for the scene to get to. I just don't see that being practically implemented right now.
All right. There you go.
That's it. All right. Well, that went way longer than I expected it to. I, again, overestimated or underestimated our ability to answer questions for a long time.
To be fair, that first answer, like Semphis did just give his entire life story. Like at one point I kept forgetting, like, holy shit, there was a question at the beginning of this. He was going mad deep on that one.
This is pretty much just the whole episode, but I think that was awesome though.
Yeah, my laptop overheated twice on this.
Really?
Well, at the risk of having it overheat again, can I ask you guys just a general question to wrap things up? So I'm notoriously anti-microtransaction, but were weapon skins necessary for Counter-Strike to actually get to the point where it is today? Or could it have been done some other way?
No, I think they were necessary. Quick answer from me.
I think like for total amount, yeah, I think they just help. Like, dude, there's people that literally just trade skins. Like that's like all they do. Like they're on Reddit and stuff. They might they have like a favorite team. For I don't know if they even watch the team, and then they like get skins based around that and put stickers on it and stuff. So
here's the problem. I've said this story many times, but I'll just relate it because it'll contrast with what I'm going to say. I actually thought when they announced skins, like this is the dumbest idea of all time. Who gives a fuck about skins? I've told Mauisnake, I played for years and years with just like the naked AK with no skin whatsoever. And obviously everyone playing will be like, what the fuck, have you never played this game? I was like, no, I played it years. It's just not a thing for me. But the reason I realized I was wrong is not just CSGO popping off, but I noticed that like the younger generation, and this is a really dark fucking thing to realize, to them, in-game items are like, to us, if you were born in like the 80s or the 90s, like having really sick trainers at school or having like a fucking sweet like BMX bike or something. To them, having an in-game virtual imaginary item they don't actually own and that the game dev can take away from at any point in time is their equivalent to flossing on motherfuckers. And that was simultaneously cool in the sense that I knew esports would make loads of money, and probably one of the most depressing actual realizations about how fucked all of society is if that's what the youth actually like aspires to. Like they just dream of having a fucking really sick AK skin or something. Like, Jesus, this is like some Black Mirror dark episode.
No, but you're right. It really is people flexing on their friends.
My short answer is just like, no, the game is so good and eternal that it didn't ever need it, but it helped a hell of a.
Yeah, that seems to be the consensus around here.
It wouldn't be where it is today as far as popularity goes without aesthetics.
Certain really big countries in the world probably wouldn't even care about it, I'd guess.
I feel like the viewership numbers would be like 30 to 40% of what they are.
Especially with drops factored in when they were still doing drops back in the day.
Yeah, you have to also take into consideration when you used to have like betting when it was at its all-time high. You'd have like 30,000 people watching like a meaningless match, like literally like so. You have to think about that from that aspect. Like Hades would stream like his match and get like 2,000 viewers on his personal stream just because like they bet on the match.
He wasn't even viewbotting at all.
Well, I don't think he was viewbotting in some of the actual matches he played.
Like,
you know what I mean? Like, but
everyone's viewbotting nowadays. What you?
No, look, I know.
He was ahead of
I'm way behind. Look,
I'm just saying, like, if you were streaming, if you're streaming a match that had a lot of people bet on it, and you were personally streaming it for 40 minutes, you'd have a lot of viewers. Like,
absolutely.
Like without a view bot or anything, like you'd have it, and then as soon as it's over, they're all gone because they just wanted to see like then be like, noob, come on, try harder, like if because like they'll
angry
post it and
bettors,
everything, like as if that's gonna influence, like as that's gonna fucking make you win the match. Oh shit, Jimmy over here fucking wants me to try, like. So
this is someone's skin on the line. I gotta go for it.
it's all that when I do that kind of shit. I'm like, man, I should fucking lose this game, like, so he loses that fucking skin.
That was also the mad thing is that you notice it always did have that effect. Is like the same fan who was like, "Fucker, you cost me." The response was always the same, like, "Fuck you and your skins. I'm glad I lost." Just every pro, that's like the one response everyone had.
No, it's true because you're already so mad that you lost, and then someone's like, "Fuck you, you lost." Like, man, fuck you, I lost. Like, you're already just fucking pissed.
I always said it's the silver lining. It's like I may have lost, but at least you lost with me.
And there's the title.
Yeah.
I don't think there was anyone that ever was in the chat too that's like, dude, thank you so much for winning me skins. Like, where the fuck are the people that are like happy you won? Where are all those guys?
Yeah,
I had a couple guys back in Cloud9, like because Cloud9 has like some of the most loyal fans the world's ever seen. Like, honestly, they might not even know who you are, but you're in Cloud9, they love you.
Yeah.
And they would like fucking message like Jordan and shit and just be like, here, give this to all your teammates. And they'd send us like a bunch of stickers, and like there'd be a couple people that would offer me skins like, hey man, I want all the money off you. But I never really accepted skin. I'm kind of like, I don't really care about skins at all. I've never been like, I want a skin. Like, most of my skins were given to me, and then I just like that, and they like I was like, okay, but it was given to me by people that like I saw on my stream multiple times, and I'm like, all right, if you really want to give me the skin, sure, but like I don't like just having skins because I just feel like they're 12-year-olds that want to be your friend, and I don't really like.
Yeah, it doesn't really seem fair. That was always the same way back in the day when people used to be like, hey, I bet on your game and we won all this money, let me give you an op. I would just be like, nah, I don't even. Honestly, I'm a little freaked out you're even messaging me right now.
That's how I have like half my skins actually.
Good for you, Alex. I'm happy for you, man.
I don't stop them. Great link in the bio.
The trade link in the description.
Yeah. My trade link in the description of this video, actually.
Yeah, in the description of this video, I'll put Mauisnake's trade link in there.
Please.
And his OnlyFans account.
I really need a new AK and a new knife. Give me a new knife or gloves, dude. Any gloves I'll take.
Do you think that
use them on all my
pro? Like, would you go pro if you?
No, I'll just make the same YouTube videos I always did, but just have gloves. That's
Okay. Anyways, we'll wrap it up there. That's been like 2.5 hours. So, Thorin, thank you again for coming on. Always, we appreciate it. I hope you guys like this sort of new video idea format. We'll definitely do these all the time, pretty much just all the time, every day, right, guys? Cool.
Yeah,
I will literally never stop making these videos.
Listen,
for gloves.
I promise
for gloves.
we'll upload one video every day this month.
All right. Well,
Corey's promise. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. See you. Tomorrow, right? see you tomorrow.
For the next video. Yeah.